Mayor's Chaplain's birthday lands on the day of a full council, so on behalf of Hertsmere Borough Council, we've got you a small gift.
Oh, wow.
So thank you so much and happy birthday.
All right. Thank you so much.
You now may be seated. Thank you.
There's probably other birthdays here too, so happy birthday. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm off.
Right, so thank you everyone and good evening. My name is Councillor Richard Butler and I am the Mayor of Hertsmere and I will be chairing this meeting. Before we continue, may I please ask everyone to make sure your phone is turned off or switched to silent. Thank you. The fire evacuation procedure. On hearing the fire alarm, please leave the building immediately using the nearest available exit. There are exits at the rear and side of the chamber. Do not, under any circumstances, use the lift. The assembly point is in the Civic Car Park in the area next to the roundabout. You should not re-enter the building until it is known to be safe to do so. The first item of business for the Council this evening is Agenda Item 1, Apologies and Communications. Do we have any apologies for absence or lateness? I do have apologies currently from Councillor Paul Hodgson-Jones and Councillor David Lambert. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Newmark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Chalice, who is unwell.
Thank you. Any other apologies? Oh, it's Councillor Gray's over there. Sorry, I couldn't see him.
Yes, I have apologies, obviously, from Paul Hodgson-Jones. As you know, we'll talk about that later. David Lambert, who was in a collision with was it a bike? He wasn't riding it at the time in the last couple of days. And at the moment, apologies for lateness from Bradley Clarkson.
Okay, thank you. So, communications. You will know, members, that robust but civil debate is the essence of democracy. The respectful conduct in this chamber is key importance to the good reputation of our council. I will be keen to ensure that debate is civil and timely throughout the evening and would ask you to support and respect this. As before, we will be using the electronic voting system. Councillors, can you also please remember to switch off your microphones when you have finished speaking? This allows the webcast camera to automatically move to the next speaker. Declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations to declare? Councillor Bright.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure yet whether or not there will be a discussion around Elstree Studios later, but just on the off chance that there is, I'll declare the interest now as an other pecuniary interest as a council-appointed director of the studios. I know I could do it at the time, but I probably have forgotten then.
Councillor Clapper.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just in case there is also any discussion of Elstree Studios, I'd also like to declare an interest as a council-appointed director of the studios. Thank you.
Any other members? No? Okay. Agenda item 3, minutes. Minutes of the meeting of the council meeting held on 25th of September and the 1st of October. These have been circulated. There can be no debate on the minutes, only accuracy may be questioned. May I sign these as an accurate record? Okay, great. Thank you. Agenda item 4, announcements by the Mayor. Can I thank all who attended my civic service? It was very much appreciated. Also, the many members from across the chamber who both represented Hertsmere on my behalf at Remembrance Day events and who joined me outside the council offices for Armistice Day. The past 2 months have been busy with events and diverse as Diwali celebrations throughout to attend the 100. Get my teeth in my head. And also, I attended a 104-year-old birthday party and seeing the incredible work made by the Generation Hertsmere event. Many thanks to Councillor Rani, my deputy, who has helped cover the events such as the Bournemouth Food Bank, who also do incredible local work. And reiterate, thank you as well, Parveen, Councillor Rani, for the Diwali event that you organised. It was fantastic. Thank you. Agenda item 5, questions from members of the public. Members, you may recall that at the last meeting we changed our council question process to improve the efficiency running of the meeting. This means that the answer has been published with the agenda. As such, we will move straight to the supplementary question in each case. Should there be any, can I remind people that it does not have to be a question, it has to be a question on the topic and the response has in the statement given. I saw Tom earlier, you're over there, fantastic. The first question is from Tom Levine regarding the impact of the government's budget on local businesses and what the council is doing. The response was published with the agenda. So do you have a further question, Tom? Do you want to come to the microphone and press the button, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Cabinet Member, for your answer. After separating the wheat from the chaff, yes, a farming-related idiom. Yes, in solidarity with our local farmers. I have realised that while the Cabinet Member went to a great length to justify the ill-advised budget, he has neglected to answer my question in full. Therefore, please, can you answer, how are you supporting the hard-working residents of Hertsmere, including professional services, manufacturers and trades, small-scale manufacturers, construction companies and tradespeople who are facing increase in costs of materials, for example, technology and innovation such as startup companies, hospitality and tourism beyond retail, creative industries such as arts, entertainment, design, media, logistics and transport, health and wellness such as gyms and beauty salons, and of course, agriculture and food production, which include farmers. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, over to you, Councillor Shenton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Livney, or should I say Councillor Livney, because I believe that you've become a Hertsmere Borough Councillor since we last spoke. So I extend my
Councillor Shenton, would you mind standing, please? Councillor Shenton, would you mind standing, please?
Sorry,
That's okay, thank you.
Yes, we have, as you are aware, an economic development unit in the council who do fantastic work working with local companies. I went to a recruitment session that they had organised a couple of weeks ago, which was called Generation Hertsmere, in which a number of potential employers were introduced to school leavers or people at school who will be soon leaving and looking for work. The council is not the government, however. We are not responsible for economic policy, we're not responsible for government taxation. So there is very little that we can do in respect of the questions that you ask. We provide the environment for companies to prosper. We provide the economic structures that we are enabled to, that are within our remit. But I think most of your question really relates to national government, for which I'm afraid I have no responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. Moving on to agenda item 6, questions from members of the council. We had a total of 14 questions received in advance. As there are questions from across the council, they have been ordered as set out by the Constitution. As usual, members to respond to your questions have been published with the agenda. As such, we will move straight to the supplementary question in each case, should there be any. Can I remind people that it does have to be a question on the topic and a response and not a statement. If your supplementary question is on an entirely different matter, I will rule it out of order. 30 minutes are allowed for the council questions, and if that time is not reached, the rest of the questions will fall. So question 1, the first question is from Councillor Bright. How the government budget will impact residents. Do you have a supplementary question on the same topic? Over to you.
Can I say first of all, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing this change to come forward, and thank Council for agreeing constitutionally to have these changes. I think it will be far more energetic questioning as a consequence, and it's a bit like the House of Commons, isn't it? You know, you should have started with, this is what I did earlier today, and I thank the Honourable Member for his question. But I'm going to turn to Councillor Shenton. Look, you've mentioned, and I'm quoting directly from your answer, that one of the key messages coming from the budget was, and I quote, the commitment by the Chancellor of protecting the living standards of working people. The news headlines this morning, everyone saw them, inflation is up, interest rate cuts less swift, higher mortgages for longer, another 100,000 pensioners in fuel poverty on top of the 1.9 already, so that's around 200 extra in Hertsmere. Farmers and food producers a bit incensed, businesses being hit hard. So can I ask you really, is it your view, Councillor Shenton, that with all that, plus the tax thresholds remaining frozen for longer, than even under us, meaning more workers will fall into the 40% tax bracket. With national insurance hikes on employers, meaning some companies won't be able to keep staff on, or may not pay bonuses, or may not for longer, or give pay rises. And with the Chancellor herself saying she expects council tax to rise by at least £100, and I'm sure it will be by more in Hertsmere. And the green bin tax that you're bringing in from next April, do you really think that the working people of Hertsmere will feel their living standards are being protected by the Labour government and this council's Labour Liberal Democrat coalition in the months and year ahead?
Thanks, Councillor Bright. Councillor Shenton, would you like to respond, please?
Thank you, Councillor Bright. To reiterate what I just said, of course, sadly I'm not the Chancellor of the Exchequer, nor does she consult me when producing the budget. But it is clear that economic growth is vital to both the country's prosperity and our prosperity in this borough. And growth over the last 14 years has been anemic. I think it was the head of the Resolution Foundation, a former Conservative minister, pointed out that per head of population it was something like 34% over 14 years. It's an appalling small amount of growth. So I understand why the Chancellor has sought to put economic growth as the prime objective. In this borough, we live within the greater bounds that are given to us. We can't set government tax policy, but it is the Office of Budget Responsibility expect growth of 2% next year, which is back to something like our traditional average and considerably better than it has been recently. We will continue to offer great services, efficiently run, and providing value for money for all of our council taxpayers and indeed of our business ratepayers. That's all we can do. We can't run the national economy, sadly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. The next question is from Councillor Green. The impact of the government's budget on Hertsmere. Do you have a supplementary question on the same topic, please?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for your answer. I just wanted to ask what the leader felt the greatest impact of the budget would be to the people of Hertsmere from a local perspective, and what impact we can have as a borough on the national rejuvenation that this budget has given us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Newmark.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Green, and thank you for your recognition that the Chancellor's budget is ultimately a budget for growth, a budget that will benefit the people of this borough, a budget that will benefit local government, and a budget that, rather than running away from the tough decisions that are needed to fix the £21 billion back hole left by their government, it actually takes those decisions head on. And thank you, Councillor Green, for taking such a constructive attitude to the budget in comparison to the members opposite and their members of the public or co-optees to Shenley Council, who see the budget as an opportunity to do nothing more than engage audaciously in the politics of divide and rule, rather than to focus on the mess that they left and the mess that we inherited and the mess that we have to fix. This is a budget that very specifically here in Hertsmere will see, after this year's local government finance settlements move onto a multi-year basis, something that they asked for year after year when they were in administration. Their own government never delivered it. The Labour government will. This, ultimately, well, it may sound like a technical piece of fiscal planning, it will, I think, be one of the most significant changes to our council, because it will enable us to take decisions and plan properly on a multi-year basis, rather than jumping from year to year, not quite knowing what to expect next. It will enable us to plan better, it will enable us to deploy resources better, and it will enable us to move out of this doom loop where we have to continually engage staff on a one-year fixed-term contract basis, because we don't know if the funds will be there to pay them in future years. So for me, that's the single most significant long-term change. But overall, it's a budget that will enable us to continue to deliver the growth that we aspire to, that local people aspire to, and that we all, as councillors, wherever we sit in this chamber, ultimately want to achieve.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. The third question is from...
Mr Mayor, sorry, I know my question isn't yet, but on this side of the chamber, most of us are freezing.
I'm not.
Except for Morris. Is there any way, and I'm getting nods, is there any way that we could do something about the air conditioning?
I will ask the question. In the meantime, while we find out the answer to that,
Mayor.
if you'd like to put your coat on, feel free to for the moment while we find out. Thank you. Right, okay, members, in the meantime, members, please, can we carry on with the agenda? We've got a lot to get through. So, question 3, the next question from Councillor Harvey Cohen, an update since the Potters Bar Football Club seal bid. Do you have a supplementary question on the same topic, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I do. Thank you, Councillor Oakley, for your reply to my question. Our Conservative group, of course, as you know, welcomes the allocation of £1 million of SIL funding to Potters Bar Football Club and the benefits this will bring to enhance football and community offerings in the town, particularly expanding access for women's football, disabled football and wider community engagements. However, we need to ask about oversight and delivery of this important project. Can the Cabinet member confirm the composition of the steering group being set up to monitor and ensure timely progress of the project? Specifically, will it include the ward councillor from Potters Bar and the Hertsmere's football champion? Furthermore, what mechanisms will be in place to ensure the business plan is implemented effectively and that the project remains accessible to the whole football community, including schools and children with special educational needs? And how will the Council guarantee transparency and accountability throughout the duration of the project to ensure it delivers on the promises made to our residents?
Thank you, Councillor Cohen. Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, it is indeed very drafty over here. Thank you for your supplementary, Councillor Cohen. We have given cast iron guarantees to Council and to members of the Silip panel who assess this application that we will be fulfilling a full monitoring process and a legal process in order to ensure that the £1 million that have gone towards this very worthwhile project are adequately used and that the whole process runs according to what we actually require. Now, I do realise you're a bit late to the party on this one as football champion. Had you been here at the outset, at the various discussions and a meeting with the applicants, and I think you probably would feel far more reassured on how we're going to monitor this. You've asked a number of very specific questions here, and I will need to give you a written answer on those details when I've referred back to officers again.
Thank you, Councillor Oakley. The next question is from Councillor Ponder on the update on the local plan. So, Councillor Ponder, do you have a... Yeah,
yes, I do. Just thank you for your answer. But given that Bowman's Cross is essential to the delivery of the government's housing targets in Hertsmere, can you comment whether all the county councillors representing Hertsmere are supporting the needs of the borough at county level?
Councillor Oakley, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ponder. Slightly strange question. As far as I know, county councillors have not been involved in the discussions with regard to Bowman's Cross. Most of the meetings are between the county council officers and our own officers. But I can report that in recent weeks, with a little bit of persuasion, county council officers have become far more engaged in the process. I would, of course, invite the divisional county councillor, Councillor Bright, to get more engaged and to assist us at county level by encouraging the officers there to participate even more fully.
Thank you, Councillor Oakley. The fifth question is from Councillor Clapper, Town Centre Partnership. Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and thank you very much to the portfolio holder for your update on the Town Centre Partnership. I was very pleased to have attended your meetings. As the previous portfolio holder, I'm very proud to have led the setup of the Town Centre Partnership and facilitated early interaction with local businesses, laying the groundwork for its success. However, it is now 18 months into your administration and there appears to be little meaningful progression. Can you explain why, despite promises in your manifesto, there is still no town centre manager in place? Additionally, why has the Business Improvement District not been progressed, despite the vital role that it plays in supporting local businesses and bringing well-needed investment into our towns? Can you confirm when we will see any form of tangible progress, and will you commit to specific timelines for delivering these crucial incentives? Do you acknowledge the commitments made and the groundwork already laid, or are these promises yet another example of Labour over-promising and under-delivering?
Yes.
Councillor Gray, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do apologise. And I will congratulate my previous portfolio holder for the work, the basic work she did on setting up the Town Centre Partnership. Look, the clue is in the title. It is a partnership and we need to be working with the businesses on the high street. And it was very clear from when we first went out there and engaged with businesses, there was quite a lot of mistrust and doubt about why suddenly, after 23 years of a Tory administration, did the council suddenly want to take an interest in the high street. And we had to spend a lot of time and effort breaking down those barriers and getting our businesses on the high street to understand that when they do well, we do well as well. We have made a lot of progress. We've had several town partnership meetings. We've now whittled that down to a smaller working group, which we held a meeting with in early November. We intend to report back the progress that we're making to the wider group and actually do another scan for any kind of leading developers and businesses that want to come forward and be part of that working group. It is a little harder, I must admit, to attract some of the key players on the high streets, the likes of Tesco's and the shopping boulevard. But we're working very hard with those. And Inner Circle, who are doing some master planning for the whole of Boreham Wood with a keen focus on the high street regeneration, is also going to be feeding back into that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. The sixth question is from Councillor Quilty about temporary housing, vacant council properties and buildings to address this. Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, my question is around affordable housing and social housing. In Bushy, it is widely known that developers have plans for over 3,000 speculative homes, Mr Mayor, on open spaces, including a significant proportion of social housing. As the Cabinet Member for Housing and indeed a Bushy councillor, do you fully support the social housing provider Clarion, a partner in the proposed Compass Park development, and were you aware that your fellow Cabinet Member, Councillor Nick Oakley, publicly criticised the provider yesterday at the Bushy Forum meeting, and also on a recent Facebook page where she referred to Clarion, and I quote, "the social landlord from hell"?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Quilty. Councillor Matthews.
Interesting question from a member of the previous administration, which proposed to develop 1,750 homes in Bushy, including 700 homes on farmland at Compass Park, within its discredited draft plan. Our partnership administration has proposed 375 homes in Bushy. But we do need to increase the proportion of affordable and especially social rented homes. And the recommended percentages will be reviewed as part of the work on the local plan and to meet the requirements of the NPPF. My view is that I want to see our greenbelt protected, but after years of underinvestment by the previous government, we are in the midst of a housing crisis and we do need more affordable homes in Hertsmere. While I'm committed to taking every opportunity to make optimum use of resources, the scale of demand is so great that we can't protect every blade of grass. I've answered Councillor Quilty's question about the performance of Clarion at the previous council meeting, and I'm satisfied they're taking action to address deficiencies and have nothing further to add. The Planning Committee will take account of all relevant matters when considering a planning application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. The next question is from Councillor Ponder. Play equipment at Moatfield Recreational Ground, Bushy. Do you have a supplementary, please?
Yes, I do, thank you. Thank you for providing a timescale, that's really appreciated. As you're aware, there's a large amount of foliage and vegetation that's been illegally cut down in the park, which will be leased by a resident who lives next door. Can you confirm when this will be cleared up and how we can deal with the resident in question who's clearly acting in an illegal manner?
Councillor Myers, do you...
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ponder, for your questions. The deliberate damage is not only frustrating for regular park users, but as you say, it's also unlawful. Our officers are working very closely with the partner agencies, the local police, in an attempt to stop this inexcusable damage that is being caused. Much of the damage to the vegetation has now been cleared, but due to a miscommunication, some of that was left, so that will be sorted imminently. But I've spoken to officers at length about this, and they're very open to sit down with you and have a chat directly about what's happening. Obviously, the police are involved, so it's not something we'd want to speak about publicly here, but purely because of the police. So if you do want to sit down with officers, I'm happy to arrange that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. The 8th question is from Councillor Cohen. Local plan timetable. Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you once again, Councillor Oakley, for your reply. Residents in Hertsmere were promised a local plan within 6 months of the Labour-led administration taking place. 18 months later, there is still no plan. This ongoing failure has left our borough exposed to speculative planning applications which are now flooding in due to the Labour-Lib Dem coalition's inaction. Does Councillor Oakley agree that the National Labour government's shocking proposal to reclassify large areas of our green belt into grey belt threatens to impose housing numbers nearly 3 times higher than those in the draft local plan proposed by the previous Conservative administration, a plan that Labour encouraged residents to oppose? And will the Cabinet member explain why they have broken their promise to deliver a local plan and confirm when they will produce one to protect our residents, safeguard our green belt and prevent speculative developments from overrunning our communities?
Thank you, Councillor Cohen. Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, Councillor Cohen, you're beginning to sound like a broken record because at absolutely every opportunity you say the same thing. I was not sitting on 17,000 objections to a draft local plan. I was sitting on 2,000 individual objections and a website with about 3,000 similar objections. So from that point of view, I think we have already succeeded where you have failed in your administration. Yeah, I'm answering your question. I'm not reading from a script. You've asked specific questions about the local plan. If you don't like what I'm saying, I'll happily sit down, Councillor Cohen. Yes, I'm answering your supplementary. I'm commenting that your supplementary is more or less the same every time there is a meeting or every time you get the opportunity to ask me a question. No, we are delivering a local plan. We went out to Reg 18 in May. We were going to Reg 19 at the end of the year. Our officers have been working through all the comments that were made, working on all the technical reports and infrastructure delivery plans which are needed in order to get to that particular stage. Now, I'm sure I don't need to remind you that in July there was a general election, and so things moved. Right? We were given targets that now have to be achieved. We were told there was going to be a new national planning framework, and we are waiting for that, and that is not coming until the end of the year. So it is extraordinarily difficult to actually progress when you don't know what it is the government exactly wants you to progress with. Now, because of this, we've written to the Minister. We asked that we may transition, which means being given a little longer in order to look at how we can achieve these new housing targets. And we have received a reply this week. It wasn't a yes, it wasn't a no, but the door is clearly open. However, there is nothing we can practically do until the MPPF is published in December and we know exactly how we're going to work. If someone can tell me the definition of grey belt, I would be delighted, and our officers would be able to work on that.
Thank you, Councillor Oakley. Question 9 is from Councillor Sussman. Outside bodies, do you have a supplementary? Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Newmark, for your response. I'm delighted that you are in agreement with me that all places on outside bodies must be filled, and having not done this for Shenley Park Trust, have now agreed that you will not wait until next annual meeting in May and will fill the spare position and make a recommendation to Council to deal with this matter. This leads me to ask, are there any other positions that may have been overlooked?
Thank you, Councillor Sussman. Councillor Newmark.
Thank you, Councillor Sussman. Sorry, I'm still warming up because it got colder over this side and I'm right in the firing line, evidently. Look, thank you for your question and thank you for your commitment to ensuring that the situation regarding Shenley Park Trust is resolved. The answer is, to the best of my knowledge, there are no other such vacancies. The reason there is a vacancy on Shenley Park Trust, to be absolutely clear, is that, as some of the members opposite will be aware, we generally fill these nominations at the annual meeting of Council. At the last 2 annual meetings of Council, we were only asked to fill and nominate 2 members in order to fill 2 vacancies that we were told we had on Shenley Park Trust. As people will be aware, we actually took the slightly unprecedented step of appointing the Council's Head of Legal Services as one of our nominees, precisely because of a number of legal concerns related to the manner in which the Trust operates. The reason for this, I understand, is that we had until now and previously accepted the contention of the Chair of Shenley Park Trust that the Council is only entitled to 2 places. It's taken a bit of time, but I have had this matter looked into in some detail, and it is evident to me that the Chair of the Trust is incorrect, that the authority is entitled to 3 places, and of course we should use all of those 3 places at the earliest possible opportunity. Unfortunately, for procedural reasons, it's not possible for me to make a nomination in the context of the response to a member's question, because this item is not a decision-making report. However, I am advised that with the consent of members, I can do so under the leader's report, and that is my intention to do so later this evening. So that is the equivalent of fast food in council procedure. You asked for it and you're getting it.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. Question 10 is from Councillor Allen. King George's Park, Bushy. Do you have a supplementary?
Could Councillor Myers explain the process and plan for siting the replacement cafe at King George's?
Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Allen. Yes, so as you'll be aware, we had a consultation that went out over the summer that was incredibly popular. It came around King George's. So a huge amount of questions were asked, and we got answers to all of them. The one that was looking a little bit iffy as to what do people actually want was where the cafe went. It came down to sort of a 50-50, which wasn't ideal. So we pulled together a group of stakeholders, and I was really pleased to have my Bushy ward councillors there with us as well. It was fantastic to have you all there. We sat down with the King George's Friends Group, with the cafe operator, numerous people, and thrashed out exactly where we were going with this. Eventually we've got down to the point that, as you'll be aware, the cafe is going almost where it is at the moment, slightly off-centre, just to ensure that it's out of the danger zone to where it is at the moment. Obviously, there's subsidence because of trees and stuff. It's all being pulled forward. But it was a stakeholder meeting that we pulled all of this together. Huge thanks to you guys over there for being instrumental in getting the stakeholder meeting up and running. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. The question 11 is from Councillor Sussman, the impact of government budget on farmers. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Richards, for your response. I shared this with a local farmer who thanks you for the stock answer response and referral to the uk.gov website. I won't share the wording she used, but to say she felt it was a bit of an insult would be an understatement. The supplementary question is, can you give me the data that backs up the claim that this will only affect a small number of farms, and how you define a small family farm? Thank you.
Councillor Richards.
Thank you, Councillor Sussman, for the original question and the supplementary. I think there's an important missing part here, that farmers have been disenfranchised for decades. And especially since Brexit, they haven't received recognition of the important work that they do around food security. And indeed biodiversity net gain. They're really key to deliver both. And I think I'm not in the Labour group. I am a portfolio holder for environmental sustainability here in Hertsmere. We're in a shared administration with Labour. I don't have the data on the number of farms. I did try and look into this. In terms of the number of farms in Hertsmere or in the local area as much as possible. I would be very happy in the new year to hold a meeting, because I think local farmers are very key to our net zero ambitions, and we have to have a partnership with them. So I'm more than happy to arrange a meeting in the new year, and would invite any other portfolio holders that would like to join me in that, and officers. Thank you.
Sorry, and the definition of a small family farm?
Thank you, Councillor Richards. Question 12. The next question is from Councillor Selby, parking charge in Newbury car park, Radlett. Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. With this increased monies for Hertsmere Borough Council from Newbury's car park, is this money being reinvested for the safety of our residents? Unfortunately, there's been some safety issues of late in Newbury's car park. We rarely see the community enforcement officers in Radlett, and even if we do, what can they do to enforce and ensure the safety of our residents? As confirmed by the Chief Inspector of Hertsmere this week, they don't have any authority. Will you commit to scrutiny, carrying out a deep dive into the community engagement officers, and consider KPIs to measure how successful they are ensuring the safety of our residents? Thank you.
Councillor Shenton.
Thank you, Councillor Selby. I would like to say that in the last year, there have just been 5 incidents of crime in Newbury's car park, all relatively minor thefts. We've introduced CCTV cameras to further reassure people that the car park is safe. The police are not accountable to local government. Political oversight comes from the Police and Crime Commissioner, who is, of course, Conservative. And their precept went up 5.5% last year, considerably more than ours. We constantly monitor the safety of our car parks, but Radlett is thankfully a low crime area. It is a safe area, which I'm very glad to see. And there are no plans to do any more that I'm aware of.
Last question then, from question 13, Councillor Selby, liaising with neighbourhood authorities on developments.
Thank you, Councillor Oakley. Have I got time? Okay, thank you. Through my work on this, alongside Councillor Clapper and our MP Oliver Dowden, we've had a successful meeting with St Albans Planning Department and the 5 roads in Radlett that are most affected by the proposed Harper Lane development site contained in the St Albans local plan. Through a number of agencies working together, we've found a solution that works for residents in the 5 roads affected by access issues. This has been widely reported in the local press, and as Hertsmere work on their local plan, I ask for your reassurance, Councillor Oakley, that our planning officers will be robust in their responses to neighbouring local plans that detrimentally impact our areas. Thank you.
Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Selby, for both of your questions. We had the duty to cooperate, as it says on the order paper, a couple of weeks ago. I was extremely robust about B8 in terms of the impact on the residents of Radlett. We then followed that up with a written response on the duty to cooperate, laying out our concerns, which are obviously in the main highways ones. I would be very happy to discuss this with you more fully. I'm more than happy for our officers to spend the necessary time dealing with St Albans so that we can come up with a solution that will keep our residents happy.
Thank you, Councillor Oakley. The last question is lost, and we move on to agenda item 7, Decision Report, Homelessness Review and Strategy 2024. I call on Councillor Alan Matthews to move the recommendation as set out in the report. Please, Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Following endorsement from Cabinet 2 weeks ago, this report recommends that the Council adopts our new homelessness and rough sleeping strategy, which we're required to review every 5 years. I need to thank staff for completing such a comprehensive report containing information on national, regional and local trends. Increasing house prices have made Hertsmere the 15th least affordable place to buy in Great Britain, and with more than 50% of households unable to buy or rent privately. The ongoing shortage of social housing means that people face a long wait on the housing register, particularly acute for those needing 3- and 4-bedroom accommodation. Homelessness demand has doubled since the last review, with an increase in applications through loss of private sector accommodation due to higher mortgage costs and some landlords leaving the sector. Other main causes are exclusion by friends and relatives and homelessness through relationship breakdown, including those suffering actual or threatened violence. I need to commend the efforts of housing staff and the vital contribution of our key partners, which have supported families experiencing the trauma of homelessness and avoided a huge increase in temporary accommodation and cost, despite the increase in demand. Given the ongoing cost of living pressures, continued high interest rates and lack of affordable housing, we expect demand to continue to rise, and we need to adapt to the changing nature of that demand. Our consultation document proposes 6 overarching strategies to meet future needs. Responding to an increase in households presented with complex needs, continuing our focus on preventing homelessness, improving access to safe and affordable accommodation in the private sector, and we welcome the government's Renters' Rights Bill in this respect, responding to increased demands from refugees and asylum seekers arriving through the government's safe and legal resettlement schemes, and ensuring that we access funding for this purpose, increasing levels of partnership working, and ensuring that limited social housing is being allocated fairly to house those in the greatest need. Following approval from Cabinet in September, we commenced public consultation, which ran for 6 weeks through a variety of channels. The consultation appendix outlines all comments and our responses if the suggestion hasn't been recommended and included in the report. We received 95 responses, 29% supporting the proposal, 56%
Councillor Matthews, you've got 20 seconds.
Weren't sure. So I'm trying to rabbit on through this. We had a series of meetings with key partners, which you'll find in the report, and there's general agreement on the proposals that we're making.
Councillor Matthews, can I ask you to... Are you moving it?
This is my last sentence. We're asking Council to adopt our new homelessness and rough sleepers strategy.
Thank you. Can I call on... Is it Councillor Oakley seconding this, please? No, Councillor... Rani, yep, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to second the motion for the adoption of the Homelessness and Rough Sleeping Strategy 2024. This strategy is a crucial step forward in addressing one of the most pressing issues facing our borough today. It sets out a clear and actionable vision to ensure that everyone has a secure and affordable place to live, and that support is available for anyone threatened with homelessness. We are living in challenging times, with rising living costs, a lack of affordable housing, and increasing demand for homelessness services. The data in the homelessness review paint a stark picture, a 111% increase in homelessness approaches since 2019, and only 24% of social housing needs met in 23-24. These figures highlight the urgency of implementing a comprehensive strategy to tackle homelessness effectively. This strategy is not just about identifying the problem, it's about taking action. It builds on the Council's achievements in reducing temporary accommodation placements through early prevention work, while also addressing key challenges such as the shortage of affordable housing, the increase in complex support needs, and the growing demand from refugees and asylum seekers. The objectives outlined in the strategy are practical, achievable, and rooted in the feedback from residents and stakeholders. Regular reviews of the strategy will ensure that we remain responsive to changing needs and challenges. This is about more than just meeting the required obligations. It's about fulfilling our responsibility to support the most vulnerable members of our community. Therefore, I'm pleased to second the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rani. This matter is now open for debate, and I already have Councillor Minal Sakdev. You put your hand up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as we revisit our homelessness strategy as part of our 4-year review, this is a key moment of reflection as homelessness continues to rise both nationally and here in Hertsmere, as has been mentioned. The pressures on our communities are growing, and our response must continue to evolve to meet these challenges. I'd like to first recognise our council officers who have been instrumental in their focus on prevention. From the work that I'm doing nationally on homelessness, I believe that prevention is definitely the key foundation for this work. From providing housing advice and debt management support to working in schools and with social housing, our officers are making a huge difference. Despite their efforts, however, the increasing number of asylum seekers, as been mentioned, and refugees is proving to be a challenge and will continue to do so. Just recently, I've been working with a lady who is an asylum seeker in my ward who went through persecution in her country, and things have been extremely difficult for her because the council that she went to first didn't take their duty as seriously as they should have. This is an area where we must remain vigilant and compassionate to ensure others don't slip through the cracks. Domestic abuse is another critical concern. The Domestic Abuse Act 2021 places clear obligations on local authorities, including extending homelessness support to victims. This is an essential lifeline for those fleeing violence, and it underscores the growing demands on our services. Our officers face a growing set of challenges, yet they approach their duties not just with professionalism, but with empathy and compassion. I'm fully behind them and want to express my deepest respect and admiration for the dedication that they continue to show every day and including in this strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sakdev. Councillor Giorgio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Chair of the Audit Committee, I receive regular reports regarding the risk that homelessness brings to our borough. As a part of our regular risk reporting, I've been appalled to see that homelessness approaches to Hertsmere have more than doubled over the past 5 years, from 822 in 2019 to 1,731 in 2023. This is the legacy of the previous Conservative government's cost of living crisis. As someone whose family have struggled to afford increased rental rates as both house prices and rents have skyrocketed, I know the fear that insecure accommodation brings to families in our borough. The causes of homelessness are many and vary from person to person. In Hertsmere, the reasons for the most people seeking our help are due to an end to private rented tenancy, family no longer being willing or able to accommodate them, and the relationship with a partner breaking down. There are also systemic problems which affect everyone to a certain degree, such as poverty, inequality, discrimination, a lack of social rented accommodation, and increases in the cost of living, which are leading to an acute problem with housing people. We all know that there are multiple underlying causes which will take the national government to fix, such as a failure to invest in UK clean energy, building up well-paying jobs, especially in the UK's primary and secondary industries, and preventing international wars and trade wars, which waste precious resources and cause us to have to spend more to import the things that we need. But in spite of this, we need housing to become more affordable, otherwise any gains continue to be swallowed up by housing costs. This strategy can only go so far to address these underlying problems, but what we can do is ensure that we continue to use our reserves to guarantee that no one spends a second night rough sleeping, and those who approach us to inquire about homelessness are given the right support from our partner organisations quickly and efficiently. When there is a need for a person or family to be housed, we must make certain that they are accommodated quickly in suitable accommodation and given the certainty of a safe, permanent home as quickly as possible. It's for these reasons that I support this strategy and will be voting for it tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Giorgio. Councillor Bright.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. And that was the Chairman of Audit. I'm going to speak very quickly because I've got a few things to say. But can I first of all say, even though my seconds are being away, that I do think that it falls upon officers and the Cabinet member to ensure that a Cabinet member can present their item to this council for us to be able to discuss and vote on it. It's not good enough that we have Cabinet members who, I'm not having a go at you, but you actually ran out of time. So can we make sure that things aren't too long, because we have to be able to discuss full documents. It's a very good item, but if you can't speak within 3 minutes, you've got to cut words out of it. That's my view. It's good to note that the number of households, it's 150 words a minute, by the way, and that allows a bit of time for laughter as well. Good to note that the number of households in temporary accommodation has actually reduced since 2019, and the average number of new placements in temporary accommodation per month has halved. This demonstrates the success of our department's early homelessness prevention work, supported by the additional capacity within the wider housing team, and we must thank them for that. I'd like to turn for a moment to rough sleepers. I note the substantial work that's been carried out by the team to reduce rough sleeping. There was a considerable decrease in 2021-22, but the rising cost of living, which is still going on, an increase in individual with complex needs, and the housing needs for those leaving asylum accommodations have all contributed to the steady rise in 2023, and we are now told that we have 6 rough sleepers in our borough. And it is hugely frustrating, and I raise this to the Cabinet, when we see how much work is carried out by this authority, to see a rough sleeper permanently encamped on Shenny Road in Boreham Wood, who has been offered help by our officers but refuses to take it. And then residents comment to us about what is the council doing about it, and I say, we can't do anything about it. It makes us look very weak. We want to see action on this, and I'd like commitment from the Cabinet member that he will work with the relevant agencies to get our high streets clear of rough sleeping, particularly now the winter has arrived in earnest. Particularly now that the winter has arrived in earnest. But overall, a detailed and good strategy. Thank you to officers. Very happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. Okay, any other speakers? No? Okay, in that case, over to you, Councillor Matthews, to sum up, please.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to members for their general support, and also for expressing your appreciation, as I've done, to the dedication of staff in actually helping us get through what's been a difficult period. I don't think there's many specific questions to ask her, but there is a question about single homelessness. And I should say that the severe weather emergency provision was activated last night, and we'll continue to watch the weather forecast. It's due to be enacted if temperature goes below freezing for 3 days. And we're using this as an opportunity to actually encourage some rough sleepers who we haven't been able to bring into the no second night out policies, actually bring them into the fold in order that we can work with them in the future. But clearly, a lot of work takes place with rough sleepers. We spend a lot of time talking to people to try and bring them into the fold so we can work with them, and we'll continue to do that, and I'll continue to monitor what is happening in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. So members will be moving over to the electronic voting system for members to vote on. So once that's ready, can you let us know? Yep, okay, you can vote now, please. Is that working for you, Councillor Shah? Okay, can I just ask Councillor Shaw, can I confirm how you would like to vote, please? Yes, okay, in that case, the recommendations are carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 8, decision report, temporary accommodation, procurement and placement policy. I call on Councillor Matthews to move the recommendations set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try and be a little quicker on this report. Although this isn't required by law, it's good practice to have a procurement and placement policy to consider how we procure sufficient accommodation and allocate these units in the fairest possible way. We continue to struggle to find sufficient temporary accommodation and sometimes have no choice but to resort to making placements in bed and breakfast and in accommodation outside the borough. This policy sets out the considerations in sourcing that accommodation. Placement decisions can be contentious, and it's important to demonstrate, particularly if there's legal challenge, that all relevant factors have been fully considered and decisions made within a policy framework. In making placements, we will take account of education, particularly at key stages, employment, avoiding areas of potential risk, and health and support needs. Where we have to compromise on placements in emergency situations, subsequent moves will be considered and prioritised, along with the needs of other households also in need requiring immediate assistance. Following approval from September Cabinet, we commenced public consultation which ran for 6 weeks until the 24th of October, again through a variety of media channels. No responses were received, therefore no changes to the policy are considered necessary. Thank you.
Okay, you had a minute 40 left on that one, but never mind, that's all good, thank you. Can I call on Councillor Oakley to second? Who's second? Oh, Councillor Carter, I'm wondering who's seconding it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. This matter is now open for debate. Do I have any members wishing to speak? Yep, Councillor Sussman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I begin by saying that, of course, we want to support this. This is a huge matter, not only locally but nationally. And given that one of the purposes of this report is to establish how it will make decisions on who is placed into available units, I would urge that we look to house local people in local properties. We need our housing associations to step up to the mark. We need to ensure that they are working closely with us and the vacant properties are offered to local people. By far the main challenge is the availability of property, or should I say the lack of availability. This concerns me greatly. Even more concerning is that this lack of property is only going to increase more. We totally agree we have to have a policy in place. We need to be prepared for what the next few years will bring. Changes in the government have led to changes in legislation, which have become not only a deterrent to landlords, but has seen an exodus of landlords from the local property market. Previously incentivised landlords have not even been able to make a choice to stay in the property market. The costs are prohibitive, and the forthcoming Renters Reform Bill makes being a landlord totally unviable to most people. Unfortunately, like most of the country, the Hertsmere landlords fall under the most people category. We're struggling to house people now, and soon we will have less to offer. I'm not being a pessimist, I'm being a realist. This report recommends that each local authority should have a policy for procuring sufficient units of temporary accommodation to meet the anticipated demand during the coming year. It also acknowledges the challenges. I just hope that the current government will U-turn on something, anything, that will enable this policy to do what it needs to do.
Thank you, Councillor Sussman. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Temporary accommodation takes many forms, from traditional houses, self-contained units, hostels, shared accommodation and hotels. The need for temporary accommodation has risen due to many factors, and not just the financial pressures that we commonly associate, but also due to domestic violence, being victims of crime, seeking asylum, and also the breakdown in family relationships. There is a huge demand for housing suitable for 16 to 17-year-olds and those with a need for adaptive properties. I have a friend who needed support in temporary accommodation from Hertsmere this summer. She was housed and supported for a 2-week stopgap that she desperately needed to secure another property independently. She was supported by Hertsmere, but the temporary accommodation was in Luton, away from their children's schooling, their employment and their church community. And let's not forget that the associated costs of temporary accommodation for those not in receipt of housing benefit is high. As we open up our borough to new developments, within these plans we must find a way to ensure that we create more temporary accommodation units within our settlements. We can utilise monies received from developers to do this, and this will give our residents who need it the ability to be surrounded by their community and support networks at times when they most need it. Most importantly, allowing those in need to have accommodation that is safe, welcoming and accessible. Hertsmere currently has 70 properties of housing stock for this use, and I would urge the portfolio holder to actively work at this time of growth and development to increase the borough's number of temporary homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Rani.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am pleased to support this recommendation for the Temporary Accommodation Procurement and Placement Policy 2024, which is an essential step in addressing the pressing challenges we face as a council. These are undeniably difficult times. Rising living costs, a housing crisis, and increasing demand for homelessness services have placed immense pressure on councils across the country, including ours. This policy comes at a critical time. It provides a structured and transparent framework for how we procure and allocate temporary accommodations. It ensures that even in the face of limited resources, we are prioritizing safety, suitability, and value for money, while striving to meet the needs of the most vulnerable members of our community. The challenges we face are significant. Increased demand for homelessness services, a shortage of affordable housing options, and the need for specialized accommodations for those whose specific requirements, such as physical disabilities or mental health challenges. The policy addresses these issues with a structured and transparent approach, reducing the risk of legal challenges and ensuring fairness in the allocation process. In these challenging times, this policy reflects our commitment to protecting those most in need. For these reasons, I am pleased to support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rani. Anyone else wish to speak? No, in that case, over the queue, Councillor Kaza.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Using the procurement principles, the Council is committed in ensuring a balance between the availability of accommodation with a value for money by means of various procurement techniques. When placing a household, a range of factors are used to determine the team's decision. For example, the practicality of travel to nearby schools and offices, and so on. This is to comply with the Ministry of Housing's guidelines and the recommendation by the Supreme Court to implement such a policy and prevent legal challenges by local authorities. This policy also recognizes the rise of overall demand and the increase from those who might not be eligible for temporary accommodation needs, and the need for getting suitable temporary accommodation for specific groups like disabled people, 16 and 17-year-olds, and people with care and support needs. Over a 5-year period, temporary accommodation placements within the borough fell from 88% to 68%, while those being placed outside the borough rose from 12% to 32% over the same 5-year period from 2019 to 2024. This report details the Council's range of options, including properties the Council owns and uses, privately owned, managed, and self-contained accommodation used for longer-term needs, privately owned and managed units with shared facilities like bathrooms and so on, supported specialist housing for complex needs, It's acknowledged by officers that predicting the needs for temporary accommodation is tough. However, having regular reviews like
10 seconds.
Like this allows the Council to understand the trends and cater to demand. Finally, I'd like to thank Emily Dillon and the housing team for the time spent in compiling this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kaza. Back to you to sum up, Councillor Matthews.
Okay, thank you all for your comments. I think we have to make difficult decisions based on need as to, depending on what's available. these decisions are sometimes made on the spot when we're looking for accommodation for a family and there is nothing available here. So I think you need to bear in mind that most people we're dealing with have got a substantial connection with the borough. So I really think there's kind of a very small opportunity to effectively discriminate against people with short connections in the borough, because at the end of the day it depends on their level of connection and how dependent they are on their connection in the borough. And I think that has to be the key factor which decides what we do in making those difficult decisions. We are working closely with housing associations. We are maximising our access to property. You mentioned 70 empty homes, but in terms of the stock of housing association property in the borough, 7,000 properties, 1% turnover is actually comparatively small if you look across the range of different tenures. I understand that some landlords are kind of naturally concerned about the Renters Reform Bill, but I think the requirements are not as onerous as they consider. They can still get vacant possession at the end of the day, but we are working with landlords to convince them that their situation is still a safe situation.
10 seconds.
And this was an issue discussed at the Landlord Forum last month. Okay, sorry, at the end of the day, we're asking you to adopt this policy.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Or we'll be using the electronic voting system. I hope for Councillor Shah it works. If not, I'll take how you're going to vote verbally. Okay, Councillor Emron, how do you wish to vote? Yes. Yes, that's unanimous. The recommendation passes. Thank you, members. And okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 9, decision report, Bushy Golf and Country Club redevelopment. I call upon Councillor Newmark to move the recommendation set out in the report.
Oh, it's a bit easier with a normal-sized microphone now. I don't know where the other one came from. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm proud to be standing up to take us to the next stage of the delivery process on this important project. I'm proud to be delivering on our commitment as an administration to maximise value from public assets that this authority owns. And I'm proud to have broken the endless cycle of talk and repeated consultation led by the administration opposite since well before the COVID pandemic. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Councillor Shenton for his work in leading the all-party steering group that has taken us to this significant staging post. The reason, members, this report is in front of you today is multifaceted. First of all, because we are now moving towards delivery phase, we have to reallocate the initial feasibility costs that have already been spent from the core asset management budget into a capital project budget. That's absolutely critical in terms of meeting our fiduciary responsibilities as a council. Secondly, it's an opportunity to make it clear and recommit to the number of homes, the extensive number of homes that we intend to build on this site. And it's quite significant that this report follows the previous two on homelessness and on temporary accommodation. Because, you know, as much as Councillor Sussman can sort of speak up and bleat on behalf of the private landlords, on this side of the chamber, whilst we accept private landlords have a role to play, we disagree, because we think the long-term solution to the housing crisis created by the previous Tory government is actually about building more social homes and more affordable homes. And the public agree with us, because if you go back to Councillor Morris's original consultation process, members of the public in Bushey were asked to rank what they felt should be present on the site. And I think it was a surprise to some of those opposite that social housing came incredibly high up the ranking list. In fact, I think it was in the top 3, if not right at the top. I'm also proud that this project will deliver a much-needed community hub, providing a variety of facilities to the residents of Bushey. This project will revitalise Bushey. It will bring much-needed homes to the borough. It will develop a revenue stream, a much-needed revenue stream for this authority as well. There is broad consensus over what the public want to see on that site. We've said it every single
10
time
seconds.
there's been one of at least the 3 or 4 consultation processes that have happened to date. This is a staging post. It takes an important project forward, and I'm really pleased that we've got to this point in front of us this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. I call upon Councillor Shenton to second, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Leader. This resolution is to confirm the recommendation of the Cabinet that the Council fund the next stage of the development of the Bushey Golf and Country Club. This is a vital development for Bushey and for Hertsmere. It will provide a new community hub that we can all be proud of, bringing together a whole range of civic functions, plus housing, especially social and affordable housing, and it will create an open space in perpetuity, which my dog already happily walks on, and which will occupy the overwhelming majority of the sites. It's taken us a long time to get this far. The golf course closed in 2018, and there is still a lot of work to do, but this resolution marks the next vital stage. It doesn't commit us to a particular type of development. It doesn't say exactly where housing should be. It's a facilitating motion. It provides the funding so that we can move to the next stage. I think there's widespread agreement amongst all the council members of the Working Party of what the broad shape of the development will look like. We've had a very constructive session with the architect, and we are making good progress. So I would ask you to support this enabling motion so that we can move ahead with this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. I've got Councillor Paul Morris to speak first.
Sorry. When I first noted that at long last the council was to receive a proposal to redevelop Bushey Golf and Country Club, I could have not been more pleased. Regrettably, having considered the approach being taken, whilst I fully support the proposal that I was involved in consulting on, which incidentally made reference to affordable housing, not social, I cannot support the process that is being proposed here. The proposal before us is requesting the provision of over £400,000. These costs should have been incorporated within the joint venture agreement and not totally borne by HBC. In essence, any joint venture agreement should share the costs to enable all profits to be shared with the selected partner. So I must ask Councillor Newmark, as the Cabinet member, to clarify which of these costs have already been expended and how much council money will be utilised during this part of the process. I have additional concern regarding Councillor Oakley's attempt to influence the exclusion of a potential joint venture partner, which I believe to be exceeding her authority. My current understanding is that Hertfordshire County Council has no interest in a relocation of the library. Any proposal by this administration must reflect the financial viability for the creation of what is required to create an acceptable return on investment and structured in a manner that will cover the ongoing maintenance of the facilities. I've made multiple requests to view the briefing document for the development of the site, which should have been provided to potential joint venture partners. To date, that has not been forthcoming.
Thank you. You're done.
I cannot support this proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to remind members that the Bushy Country Club is identified as a potential site under the draft local plan. The redevelopment covers the Golf and Country Club, a new community hub, a car park, commercial units, and housing with the rest to represent a public open space. This report outlines a budget of 401,000 needed to conduct a feasibility for the redevelopment of, with a detailed breakdown of sums mentioned in the table of under 6.1. Currently, Hertsmere does not have a 5-year housing land supply needed to cover housing with the mandatory housing targets. This site will help alleviate the shortage. The land value also covers a minimum of 50% affordable housing with Hertsmere Living Limited as a registered provider. This agenda item is especially important to consider, as we have heard earlier in the meeting regarding the homelessness situation in the borough. So, fellow councillors, this is a fantastic opportunity for Hertsmere to benefit in the long term, and I support the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Richards and then Councillor Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're proud as a group that we can see progress now in what was a key local Lib Dem manifesto commitment to residents in Bushy. It's important that as well as the current working group, led by Councillor Shenton even, sorry Chris, we also pay heed to the working group previously chaired by Councillor Paul Morris, and also give thanks to him for running that, comprising residents and key stakeholders. I am very concerned, though, to hear his not being able to back or not being able to support this. And I'm also slightly disappointed that neither of the two Bushy Heath councillors were able to join other Bushy councillors and council officers in a very, very productive workshop which we ran a couple of weeks ago, which was very informative in terms of the usage and the types of sort of very high level possibilities that can ensue. Not least, we touched upon again retaining those open vistas that are so enjoyable from the high street. How long have I got? 30 seconds. Okay. I can just wholeheartedly support this proposal, having seen it through Cabinet, and yeah, here we go.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. I call on Councillor Cohen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry to say these proposals fall far short of what is required and we would have expected, and therefore my group cannot and will not support the recommendation as it stands. We are being asked to approve a feasibility project budget to secure a development partner, yet there is an alarming lack of details about the vision for the site. This is one of the most important locations in Bushy, encompassing a significant area of high-quality greenbelt land. Any developments here must enhance the natural beauty of the site, but we are given no clarity on how this will be achieved. Many important questions come to mind when we read our papers. Amongst them, how will the vista overlooking the park be improved or preserved even? What type of commercial units are being considered, and where is the evidence for their necessity? How will this redevelopment generate income? And how will the country park, intended as a public open space, be maintained for the long term? Even more troubling is the total lack of community input. Where in our papers is the data showing what our residents want for this site? The community's voice should be at the heart of this process, yet it has been sidelined. I am worried that this is a procurement plan with a decision already made as to what is going into this site, a total lack of transparency. The developer will make the call and not the community. Surely before spending large sums of money, Councillor Newmark, of taxpayers' money, on acquiring a development partner, we must first scope the project, engage with the residents and develop a clear vision. Developers need to know what they are quoting for and what is expected. The lack of these fundamentals is unacceptable. As Conservatives, we care deeply about this site and its future. We all agree that a positive outcome for this location is vital for generations to come, but we need to get it right. I urge the administration to come back with a detailed community-led vision before asking for this council's support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cohen. I call upon Councillor Jeremy Newmark to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Guys, I told you so, right? We had a group meeting Saturday night before last. We talked about this item. Not only did I accurately predict exactly what you guys would say, I also predicted who would say it. Look, the reality is, up until now, all you lot have done has paid lip service to this project. You never really wanted to see it happen. You wanted to throw spanners in the work. You wanted to delay. You can't stomach the fact that this administration is delivering. You talk to us about wasting taxpayers' money. You're the administration that did a dodgy deal with a meanwhile tenant on the site that turned into a net loss for the council. We reversed that, bought in a decent tenant, the Creative Arts School, and are making twice as much money as you were. You talk about loss of open space. You closed off the open space on that site. This administration acted fast to open that green space up to the public. You pay lip service. Again, we deliver. Councillor Morris, how disappointing. Read your papers. Don't tell us we haven't set out what expenditure has already been made. Paragraph 6.1, absolutely clear, which includes 61k of spend to date. There's a very solid reason that somebody involved in property development ought to know that you make some of these costs up front because it speeds the process moving forward. It's also absolutely clear that a large amount of that cost could indeed be claimed back and bought back in the context of a joint venture and the developer. But we need to do this feasibility work now. We need to comply with the various procurement requirements in order to move forward. All you're interested in is delaying and delaying and delaying because you don't want to see us deliver a project that you failed to take forward over 7 years from start to finish. We're about administration, we're about delivery. This project will happen, people will benefit, and you'll carry on bleating the same old line, where's the vision, where's the vision, where's the vision? The vision's in this paper, a community hub, much needed housing and a retail outlet. We've got the vision, all you've got is empty rhetoric. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right, we're going to the electronic voting system, so members, can you please get ready to push your buttons, and if there's any problems, I'll ask that member to... Councillor Mark Amron, can I ask how you intend to vote, please? It's a yes, yeah? Okay, thank you. So in that case, the... yeah. Okay, the motion's carried. Thank you, members. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 10, decision report, King George's Park, Bushy, consultation result. I call upon Councillor Chris Myers to move the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This evening, I'm recommending that the Council notes the increase in total allocation of 1.041 million approved by the SILIP panel to be funded from Strategic Community Infrastructure Levy, SIL, for improvements to King George's Park, Bushy, and includes this in the Council's capital programme for 25-26. Further notes the outcome of the consultation carried out over the summer regarding these improvements, and notes the timeline for developing these improvements as set out in paragraph 5.6 of the report. This report is a direct response to the extensive consultation we conducted over the summer. Over 550 residents took the time out to respond to the survey, but it reached many, many more. I'd like to extend my thanks to King George's, to the Friends of King George's and the Cafe in the Park for helping to promote the consultation. In addition to the key survey questions, we received more than 12,000 individual comments and suggestions for improvements. It's clear that the park is well loved, well used and highly valued, but there's a strong support for further investment and upgrades to its facilities. As we've previously shared, residents want the cafe replaced. Following public meetings, we've agreed to build a new cafe as close as possible to the existing location while addressing the structural issues that have affected the current building. Other key improvements include upgrading play equipment for all ages, with a particular focus on older age groups, ensuring the equipment is inclusive and, where appropriate, themed around natural play, and retaining the splash park at its current location but fully upgrading it to make it more reliable. This includes a brand new purpose-built pump house where many of the current issues are originating from. This paves the way for these exciting upgrades, including the splash park refurbishment, the installation of outdoor fitness equipment, and other enhancements identified through the consultation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. I call upon Councillor Allen to second, please.
There are many things Hertsmere Borough Council can't do. We either don't have the money or the powers. There are things we can't control. But we do control SIL, which we have in some abundance. We also control parks, perhaps our most important assets. And using SIL to improve our parks is one of the most powerful means we possess to genuinely improve people's quality of life. But I recognise, as a member for Bushy Park itself, this is a very large sum of money, an extra £400,000 to bring the total to £1 million. But the benefits will resonate beyond Bushy. King George is the major park for the western third of this borough. It attracts many visitors from Radlett and Borehamwood, and even beyond the borough from Watford and Oxley. For them, King George may well be the one thing they see and experience of Hertsmere. In this sense, the park is our flagship and showcase. Sadly, in recent times, that experience has been marred by the constant failures of the splash park, the biggest single draw for King George. The scenes of switched-off water spouts and disappointed children have turned what should be a star attraction into a source of grave embarrassment. Likewise, the playground, where the equipment is old and shabby and the surfaces eroded, no longer befits a park of this status. And it's for those two main purposes, splash park and playground, this extra funding is required. Should members be gracious enough to approve it, rest assured this will be money well spent. I'd like to thank Councillor Myers, officers Ian Kershaw and Aaron Niblett, and the Friends of King George for all their hard work on this bid. And returning to the point about SIL and parks, I would welcome and give my personal support to all such further projects across the borough.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. This matter is now open for debate. I have Councillor Quilty down to speak first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. King George Park redevelopment it'll come as a bit of a surprise, but I'm going to be supporting. I'm going to be pleasantly noting this, if I put it that way, because that's what we have to do, I believe. It's truly refreshing to read such a positive report. I say this because the previous government introduced the Community and Infrastructure Levy principle that has enabled this council to fund this extensive improvement to our park in Bushy, King George's. Open spaces are invaluable. We are reminded that during the COVID days, when they became such a vital part of our lives, and I think we can all agree that, while the funding allocated is substantial, and I think Councillor Maxey did say that, but it is important to recognise its source, the Community Infrastructure Levy. That came from developers and builders in facilities, is in my view entirely justified. I would like to commend our officers who did such a very, very good job on this over the years. And I look forward to seeing this project coming to fruition. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Councillor Amron.
It's refreshing to hear Councillor Quilty supporting this, and I do hope the rest of your group will do so as well. I just want to also extend my thanks particularly to Councillor Maxey Allen, who really has worked tirelessly on this with Councillor Chris Myers and all the officers. I live very near to the park. You know, yes, it's a lot of money, as we've all agreed, but it is so long overdue. And I just hope everybody puts their weight behind this one. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Amron. Councillor Mina Sakdev.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Really happy to support the increased SIL allocation for King George's Park in Bushy. This decision definitely reflects the valuable input we've received through the consultation process, where residents have made it clear that they want a renovated splash park and an improved cafe. And I think these enhancements will make the park even more of a welcoming space. As discussed in recent SIL panels, it's crucial to have a cohesive vision for King George's Park rather than approaching improvements bit by bit. A strategic unified plan will ensure the park reaches its full potential as a vibrant community space. Being the largest park in Hertsmere, I think, King George's Park is so important for the health of our community. It's not just a recreational area, it's a vital hub for community life, supporting regular activities and hosting important events that bring people together. Investing in this park is an investment in our community's well-being and quality of life. I'm really excited about these improvements and look forward to seeing King George's Park thrive as a space that everyone in Bushy can be really proud of and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sakdev. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And as I rise at 32 minutes past 8, it's quite a novelty to see members still in their seats opposite. But I do have about 1 minute and 53 seconds to change that, quite possibly. I just want to say, fully in support of this, I really want to commend the officers, Councillor Myers, Councillor Allen, who have really driven this forward. We knew Zen City would pay for itself, and that's been demonstrated with over 500 residents taking part in this consultation and over 12,000 individual pieces of advice and recommendations for the park. I'm also really pleased that what started off as a replacement cafe has now morphed into a complete master planning of the entire site. I think it's testament to this administration over here that we will do things right, we will do it properly, and we will do it first time. We have got rid of the piecemeal approach where we start fixing little bits here, little bits there, and it ends up a bit like the Forth Bridge. It never stops being redeveloped. What we're going to do now is give the whole park a new look, a new feel, an improved splash park with a reliable pump house, a brand new cafe, upgraded sports equipment, and fully inclusive play equipment. It's testament to this administration, it's testament to the hard work and dedication of our officers, and I will be fully supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Councillor Myers, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just like to pick up on a few points. The first one, I will just say, Councillor Quilty, as much as it's lovely to hear that you're supporting this, to be speaking about sill pots and creating something wonderful. You could have done this years ago. That money's been sat there waiting and you just sat on it. Just sat on it. So thank you very much for the support this evening, but you have been sitting on this money for such a long time. Okay, the level of engagement that we've seen really shows how effective Zen City is. When we combine this software with the knowledge and hard work of our brilliant officers, we're hitting the sweet spot for connecting with residents and getting meaningful feedback. On SIL spending, I completely agree with colleagues that this has been a long time coming. When developers pay SIL, it's meant to go back into our communities to make a real difference to local people. That's why I'm so pleased to see my colleagues backing significant SIL-funded projects across the borough. Recently, we approved a £1 million investment in Potters Bar Town Football Club because of the huge community benefit that it will deliver. We're also planning 2 smaller projects in Bushy and 2 larger ones in Boreham Wood. These are all exciting steps forward, moving away from the piecemeal approach of the past. Instead, we're looking at the big picture, master planning our parks and delivering these improvements all in one go. Finally, I'd like to thank my officers, led by Mr Kershaw, for embracing this new approach and doing phenomenal work since I took over the portfolio in May. It's a joy to work with such a dedicated and experienced team who are focused on making things happen for our residents, and I commend the support to the Chamber. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. So, members, again, we'll be using the electronic voting system. I hope for Councillor Amron it might be working this time, but we'll soon find out. Thank you. Councillor Amron, how do you intend to vote? I think you can get it. Okay, in that case, the recommendations agreed and passed. So, agenda item 11, decision report, planning public inquiry costs 24 to 25. I call upon Councillor Nick Oakley to move the recommendation set out in the report. Councillor Oakley.
With your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remain seated.
Yeah, that's okay.
My voice is going as well, not just my legs. Like most local authorities, we're confronted by numerous speculative planning applications. If deemed as unsuitable and not passing our stringent planning policies, it's only right that they're refused at determination by our planning committee. Refusal of major applications will almost certainly be challenged for a variety of reasons and will be subject to an appeal or a public inquiry. It is our job to robustly contest these appeals, and our residents would expect nothing less. This requires officer time, King's Counsel advice, and frequently expert witnesses. This report outlines the government guidance on refusing planning applications, and it's clear that if we were to do that, we would be awarded costs against us as well as funding the costs of the appeal. There are occasions when the Planning Committee will overturn officer recommendations at committee using sound planning reasons, and we need to fund such appeals accordingly. In 2023-24, we spent in excess of £300,000, including 2 hearings and 4 public inquiries. This is over and above the revenue budget and requires additional funding which came from other revenue savings. Those here will probably remember the significant ones: Harris Lane in Shenley, Little Bushy Lane, Shenley Hill, and also Hartfield Avenue, which was eventually allowed. In 24-25, we're expecting a similar situation with 5 hearings or public inquiries as a result of planning committee decisions, and that needs to be covered. We recently got the result of the Watford Training Ground appeal. That regrettably was allowed. Recently, and in fact just now, Barnet Lane and Furze Hill has been heard, and we are waiting the decision on that. We have another appeal, Potters Bar Station Car Park, and we're waiting the decision on that. And we now know that the public inquiry for Sky Studios will start in March. These are largely overturns at committee, which are much more expensive to defend through additional officer time. The projected spend so far is £150,000, but further appeals as public inquiries are quite possible. It is proposed that the additional £300,000 be funded by £106,000 from the unallocated revenue budget contingency and £194,000 from the redundant new homes bonus equalisation reserve.
Thank you, Councillor Oakley. I call upon Councillor Paul Richards to second the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to second, but withhold my right to speak. Thank you.
Reserved his right to speak. Okay, thank you. Councillor Cohen, I've got you down to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our group will support the recommendations before us. However, we must reflect on how we have reached this point and the challenges that lie ahead of us if no action is taken. The additional costs incurred by the Planning and Economic Development Service are really alarming to us all. Escalating planning appeals to hearings or public inquiries is financially draining and undermines public confidence in the planning process. This report makes it clear that a significant portion of these costs stems from decisions made by the Planning Committee to reject officer recommendations. I fully respect the independence of the Planning Committee, but we must ensure that decisions are based on sound material planning considerations and are defensible. The government's guidance is explicit. Reasons for refusal must be clear, well articulated and rooted in planning policy. When this guidance is not followed, it not only exposes the Council to significant costs, but also, more importantly, risks further speculative applications from developers. And let me be clear, these speculative applications are a direct consequence of this administration's failure to keep the promise to residents and to produce a local plan. 18 months into their tenure, residents are still waiting for a plan that will provide the framework to defend against inappropriate development. Without one, the Council faces an uphill battle to resist these speculative applications, which will inevitably lead to even greater costs. Colleagues, we must act urgently. I call on this administration to end their delay, work collaboratively with our communities and developers, and deliver a robust local plan. By doing so, we can reduce speculative applications, ensure better quality, well-planned development, and protect our communities from further unnecessary costs. Let's stop managing crises and start managing our borough responsibly.
Thank you, Councillor Cohen. Okay, Councillor Green, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I actually agree with a lot of what Councillor Cohen said, but you can actually not stop someone putting in an application to build something with or without a local plan. So we're never going to stop the speculative part. But what I do want to say is that it's really important for members on planning, and if you go through any of the training, you will know this, that you are responsible for looking after all of Hertsmere. You need to leave your political hat, unfortunately, at home. It is very difficult to do that, I know. But if we go against officers' recommendations, we leave ourselves open to legislation, to appeals, and to a huge amount of cost. It's really important that if we do turn something down, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, if it's a good decision, then it needs to have proper, robust planning reasons. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Selby, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note the recommendations in the report and I'm happy to endorse them. However, as Councillor Cohen has said, I'm also concerned that the longer we do not have a local plan in place, the more appeals are going to come through, which is going to cost the council even more money. In the Labour manifesto, you promised that a local plan would be delivered in 6 months. We're now 18 months down the line with no local plan in place. With no date for a local plan, this is letting our residents down, as we're seeing an increased number of challenges of decisions made at Planning Committee. Our residents want us to protect our green belt. That is why so many of us live here in Hertsmere. But how much money is it going to cost us to keep protecting our green belt until a local plan is in place? Last year, we saw the Planning Committee refuse permission for a development on land south of Shenley Hill and Radlett. This went to a planning appeal where the decision was upheld, but costing the council £41,000. The developer then took it to judicial review and lost. But here we are just 5 months later, and the developer has submitted a new planning application, exactly the same on the same greenbelt land. Residents of Radlett will continue to fight it, but what will the cost be? I therefore urge you to move the local plan forward so that we have clarity here in Hertsmere. And with this clarity, our planning department will not be so consumed with fighting the appeals, which ultimately are a cost to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Selby. Anyone else wish to speak? No, in that case I go back to Councillor Richards to sum up, his seconding speech.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The toxic legacy of a shelved, stalled previous local plan continues. The previous administration froze in terror at the balancing of saving as much greenbelt as possible, but at the same time supplying the genuinely affordable homes that our next generation here in the borough need. This has opened us up to speculative large applications out of the blue. And in navigating this new reality, while short-staffed officers have had and continue to have an enormous amount of work on their hands. And the team should be praised again for having worked so incredibly hard in recent times. In October, the Cabinet noted the government's guidance on the importance of basing reasons for refusing planning permission on the material planning considerations relating to an application, and the need to clearly articulate those in the decision being made. I want at this point to instill a sense of pragmatism. I make no comment on previous planning applications or in current or future ones. I have no reason or right to say any are flawed decisions, but I want to reach out across the chamber to all parties, those members that fulfil the very important role of serving on the planning committee. Each application needs to continue to be assessed on its merits. Yes, we must have a robust debate on the pros and cons, but based on material planning considerations. And ultimately, the reality is we have to work within the frame of whichever political party, red or blue, is in power, and whatever you think of the deeply centralised national planning system, a fear of additional cost can neither weigh in your thoughts as to whether an application will get to appeal, nor should spurious non-material considerations be given in your reasoning. Likely to be picked apart by an inspector, basing anything on political grounds cannot be the hook on which a decision to accept or reject an officer's recommendation rests. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. I call upon Councillor Oakley to sum up.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I probably need to remind members sitting opposite that not only do we have speculative applications coming through at the moment, but speculative applications were also coming through with your shelved draft local plan. And in fact, some of the appeals that I mentioned when I was speaking earlier were a direct result of your shelved draft local plan. So that's a real case of pot, kettle, black, I think. I think it's also worth pointing out that you previously supported all sorts of applications on the Greenbelt, but suddenly changed your tune. Now, some of these applications that you are now saying should not have been overturned or should not have gone to appeal, or because it's the lack of a draft local plan, have actually been determined by members of your own. So I'm afraid I'm really not going to be taking all of that. Our residents do expect us to make appropriate decisions, and so you need to look at yourselves as well as other members of the planning committee when you are looking at overturning officer recommendations and considering, is it appropriate, is the application in accordance with planning policy, or is it not? Can you justify turning those applications down? If you can, by all means do so, but it will incur those particular costs. And we also need to be mindful of what it is our residents actually expect to do. Now, Councillor Selby mentioned Shenley Hill. It was very, very clear from local residents that they did not want the development at Shenley Hill. All developers, if they get the opportunity, will try and come back time and time again, and the planning committee will need to look at Shenley Hill as they look at other applications and determine that.
Thank you, Councillor Oakley. Right, members, the system will be open for voting, and again, if there's none mics that work. Looks like we might be on for a winner with the system. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. The recommendations are agreed. We move on to agenda item 12, decision report, review of anti-fraud and corruption strategy, anti-money laundering policy, anti-bribery policy, and adoption of fraud sanction policy. I call upon Councillor Chris Shenton to move the recommendation set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fraud is now the most prevalent crime in the country, and fraudsters' tactics are constantly evolving. So it is incumbent on us to regularly review and update our strategies and policies that help us combat fraud. The Local Government Act places a duty on the Council to have in place measures to protect public funds from fraud. This proposal seeks Council's approval to update its anti-fraud and corruption strategy, update its money laundering strategy, update its anti-bribery strategy, and to approve a new fraud sanctions policy. Hertsmere works with the Shared Anti-Fraud Service, SAFS, which is a partnership of 12 district councils and housing associations across Hertfordshire and Bedfordshire. SAFS provides expert support to its partner authorities and provides economies of scale, improving financial efficiency. The Audit Committee has scrutinised these policies at their meeting on the 30th of September and recommended to full Council for approval. The Cabinet has also recommended to approval, and so I move that we approve these policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. I call upon Councillor Giorgio to second the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor Bright rightly confirmed, I chair the Audit Committee, where all members of the committee who were present had the opportunity to review the long overdue anti-fraud and corruption strategy, anti-money laundering policy, anti-bribery policy and fraud sanctions policy in our September meeting. I trust that none of the items contained in this agenda are particularly contentious for any of our councillors. They are similar to policies which many other local councils will be adopting and include reference to many of the county-wide services we use to manage these risks. The strategy makes it clear that fraud is a real danger to Hertsmere Borough Council. Fraud accounts for 1/3 of all reported crime in the UK and could cost councils up to £2 billion each year. I give my thanks to council officers and the Shared Anti-Fraud Service who work to prevent, deter and investigate fraud in our borough. There are some changes, for example, to our anti-money laundering policy. The head of the Shared Anti-Fraud Service will also provide the role of our money laundering reporting officer. These updated policies will also make it clear that this council will pursue, invoice and prosecute to recover all losses where fraud and corruption is detected. The anti-fraud and corruption strategy lays out the different types of fraud our borough is likely to encounter. It also lays out how fraud can be reported to us confidentially. The updated anti-money laundering policy makes it clear how the council could become involved in money laundering, although that this risk is relatively low as council transactions are fewer and come under considerable scrutiny. We must remain vigilant that administration of council tax, leaseholders or commercial rents, income from the disposal of council property and financial contributions from planning legal agreements could be potential avenues for money laundering. It is therefore our duty to ensure we have the correct procedures and training in place to spot and report suspicious transactions. Similarly, this agenda item sets out the legal requirement for this council to prevent bribery and ensure that bribery is reported and acted upon. The final section on sanctions and prosecutions lays out the legal ways in which we will act to recover and potentially prosecute where fraud has been detected.
10 seconds.
I therefore commend this item to the Chamber for your support. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you, Councillor Giorgio. Members, this matter is now open for debate. Do I have any speakers? Councillor Abedek, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor Giorgio said, we considered this in Audit Committee on the 30th of September. It is very important that the Council continues to update all of the policies regarding these areas of financial crime. If anything, at 3.1, I think there's a small mistake. I think we're underestimating the cost by 10%. It should be about 2.2 billion a year. That's how serious this is. As someone who runs a FCA-regulated business, I know that even the financial sector is continually trying to keep ahead of fraudsters, and local government is unfortunately a relatively it's a high-risk target due to the sums of money that pass across our counters all the time. So it's something that we have to keep updated, and I'm pleased that the Audit Committee supported it, so please do all support that tonight as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Graham Alexander, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This paper is very timely, coming as it happens right in the middle of International Fraud Awareness Week. Fraud can have devastating consequences, which are not only financial. Victims of fraud can be left with lasting emotional impacts, causing them to feel vulnerable, unsafe and violated. In fact, fraud remains the most reported crime against individuals in England and Wales, estimated at 37% of all crime. Within the public sector alone, fraud and error losses are estimated at between 40 and 60 billion a year, of which 2 billion at least of which is for local councils. Fraud not only costs us money, it also impacts on our ability to deliver essential services to the public, and it erodes trust. And because fraudsters are always looking for new scams and techniques, our response needs to keep up with it and one step ahead of the game. And I'm pleased that we are doing just that with the significant review that has been undertaken and the enhancements to our strategy that have taken place as a result. Rightly, it recognises that tackling fraud extends beyond counter-fraud professionals and is an essential part of the role of each and every one of us, councillors and officers alike. I need not emphasise how important the anti-money laundering policy is, as well as the anti-bribery policy. In terms of the former, we have previously taken away the facility to accept cash for everything apart from car parks, and in terms of the latter, councillors and officers are reminded of the need for probity in public life. And I'm proud that Hertsmere Borough Council takes seriously all these obligations and is taking steps to ensure we can keep the trust of the public we serve.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers? No. In that case, I'll call on Councillor Shenton to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've heard some very expert financial professionals giving their advice. I think this is a no-brainer, to be honest, so I'm not going to say any more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. Okay, so members, we've got the voting system again, so hopefully it works again. Right, thank you. Yeah, Councillor Richards is out of the room, so thank you, members. That's carried. We'll move on to agenda item 13, decision report, independent member for audit committee. I call upon Councillor Giorgio to move the recommendation set out in the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I stand again for the third time as chair of the audit committee to recommend this report and the change contained within it to the council. These changes propose adding an additional seat to the audit committee and creating the independent member role to occupy it. As it is a major change for the committee, so it is rightly that I, as chair, rise to speak on it. It's not currently a legal requirement for council audit committees to have an independent member. However, the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, CIPFA, strongly recommends that we do. It also has the strong support of central government, raising the possibility that it will become a legal requirement in the future. The council and this administration is therefore taking a proactive approach and proposing to move now, rather than risk doing so at a time when it's not convenient for us to implement it. So what is the reason for this change, I hear you ask? CIPFA's advice is that independent members act as critical friends, loyal opposition, a fresh pair of eyes, and a source of subject-specific experience. Properly trained, inducted and resourced, they can act as a guardian against stagnation and groupthink. Having studied the report, I'm confident that there will be safeguards in place to ensure that this person is truly independent, both politically and financially, of the council. Also, that they're independent of any individual member and the administration itself. They will complete a register of interests, as we do, and will be subject to the members' code of conduct. In our meetings and to the public, there will be representatives of the council like us, so this is only right that they do so. Committee members may be concerned that adding a new person will dilute their influence and importance. In order to allay your concerns, please consider the following. Firstly, officers have chosen not to award the independent member voting rights. The number of voting members on the committee will therefore remain at its current number, 5, and they will all still be elected councillors accountable to the public. Secondly, for the reasons described earlier, the independent member will improve the quality of discussion and questioning at our meetings. Furthermore, the cost of adding an additional member is comparatively small and will potentially enable the independent member to straddle different administrations. Finally, their presence will give us councillors further assurance in the decisions we come to. Having an independent member of the audit committee will, however, mean that we still have to ensure that we continue to fully engage with the work of the audit committee and not overly rely on the independent member. We'll also need to ensure that we update and engage with the new member, update and engage with the new member, as they will not have area-specific knowledge of Hertsmere and our individual wards. For all of these reasons, I'm happy to support this proposal and look forward to welcoming the successful candidate to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giorgio. Councillor Abedek, I call upon you to second the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to second this and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. In that case, the matter is now open for debate. I do have Councillor Shard down to speak first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Talk of adding layers to council administration is often viewed negatively, but in this instance, having an extra pair of eyes that is neither a council employee nor a councillor will be a most positive move. We are, after all, spending taxpayer and ratepayer money, and the processes and policies we create are designed for that. We need to be very careful, and an independent eye can only enhance scrutiny. Being ahead of the curve and adopting this practice before it's mandatory is also a sign of proactive practices in our Hertsmere administration. So I trust, like the members of the Audit Committee, you will all vote in favour of this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. Councillor Prabhakar.
Loud enough. I am pleased to second the report to appoint independent members on the audit panel. Independent members can bring technical expertise to the committee. They can promote scrutiny of the committee without fear or favour, not bound by the instructions from or policies of the party. They can help the community play a more active role in the governance of the council. A robust system of local audit is key to maintaining public confidence in local government. Through assuring transparency and accountability, inclusion of independent members would support achievement of this objective. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bright, please.
First of all, can I say how lovely it is to see Councillor Shah back in the chamber after his recent malaise, shall we say, and one of the voices of reason, and there aren't that many in here at times, so it's lovely to see him back. Councillor Giorgio started his speech with, "I stand again for the third time." Now, how many times is that then? Because I'm not on audit, so I don't know. Can I just say that we welcome the appointment on this side to the Audit Committee, particularly following the change in the Council leadership in 2023, and the perhaps often erratic way this administration has so far approached the finances of the Council, some might say, and its often peculiar appointments to the committee itself. The advantages of having an independent person sitting on audit is that if it's the right person, and I'm sure it will be, they'll hold a mindset that will be willing to challenge management. And the big question is, will they be able to do that? And will the right person be listened to? Is the appointment in name only, or will there be real depth to it? Time will tell. I hope that it is going to be as important as it can be. I would emphasise what I think perhaps we already know, but it may not have been discussed in this chamber, that it's not the wish or the desire for the independent person to become the chair of the committee, and that would be wholly inappropriate. The chair has to be a member who's elected by the residents to be on the council and has to have accountability. And also a chair should be a conduit, should be an enabler, should be someone who doesn't speak too much, but lets other people do it. And that's the whole point of having an independent person there. So I personally welcome it, and I also hope that Councillor Sachdev will agree with me that it might also be worthwhile to allow the independent person to attend financial monitors to give them a full rounded idea of the finances. And so yes, we wholeheartedly support this, and the quicker it happens, the better.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. Councillor Giorgio, would you like to sum up, please?
Yes, thank you. I'm glad to hear that we mostly agreed on this agenda item, and I'd also support the independent member attending the financial monitors panel, which is also another area which I also chair. I look forward to us voting to approve this. The UK has been facing an omni-crisis for the best part of the last decade. This council has been susceptible to many of the risks that these crises bring. During my full audit report to the council, I'll elaborate on the specific risks that this council is facing and the ways in which the audit committee seeks assurance from officers, reports issues to fellow councillors, and can make recommendations to this council to help us navigate our borough through uncertain times. As always, we can, however, do more to ensure that we're acting effectively and spotting potential problems on the horizon and taking effective measures to avoid them. I look forward to working closely with the independent member of our audit committee and trust that they will bring a wealth of experience. My hope is that they will help us to mitigate the greatest risks to our council while enabling us to continue to achieve the manifesto pledges the Hertsmere Labour Group set out to the public and for which they voted for us to achieve in May 2023. I also believe that they will enable councillors from all political parties and committees to be more successful in reaching their goals, and I trust that should there once again be a change in administration, they will ensure any new audit committee are well placed to take the wheel. I therefore commend this item to the chamber and to my fellow councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giorgio. So the recommendation should be on the voting system in a moment, if we can use that again. I thought he did speak. I completely forgot that. In that case, I do apologise, and that is my fault. Well, we've already moved. I've already moved it. I just have to apologise to you. I'm sorry, but we're moving on to the vote. Sorry, thank you. Okay. Right, I'll just... We're going to rerun, members, please. We're just going to rerun the vote, please. Thank you. Thank you. Those recommendations are passed. So we'll move on to agenda item 14, decision report. Approval of members' absence. Councillor Paul Hodgson-Jones. I call upon Councillor Maurice Bright to move the recommendation set out in the report.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Mayor. I've been on the council a long time, and there have been occasions where, due to the ill health of a member, due to no fault of their own, a continued length of absence has occurred. Every person that I've met over 25 years, I believe, has entered the council for the right reason, to serve their local people. But there are times in their lives when emergencies and other things take over, and it really is very important that we understand that in most cases, absence means they can't get here rather than they don't want to be here. We had it with Councillor Lynn Silverstone when you were a young lad for Labour, and we proposed the same motion many years ago. So I'm proposing a motion tonight. I'm very aware that Councillor Paul Hodgson-Jones is not with us this evening, but that his wife Sarah Hodgson-Jones is, and that members will know that he underwent literally quite a life-saving operation 4 weeks ago. He is now out of hospital. And please God, with our prayers, will continue to make a recovery. However, as a consequence of his illness extending in the way that it has, he's been absent for the council for what's called the 6 months. And there's a 6-month rule. If we don't give permission for him to stay away longer, then he's automatically disbarred from being a councillor. And I think, bearing in mind, in this particular case, how well and how long Councillor Hodgson-Jones has served this authority, I think we can serve him the best way tonight by saying we wish him well, we send him our love, he's in our prayers, and we extend his right to be able to stay away so that he can get himself fit. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. I call upon Councillor Jeremy Newmark to second this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to second this motion and reserve my right to speak.
I shall try to remember that. Councillor Paul Richards, I got you down to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to keep it very brief. And the Local Government Act is obviously the relevant section is obviously there for a very good reason, but it's very clear in this case that we absolutely should do the right thing from across all political parties, and it would be I very much look forward to debating probably budgetary items, knowing how Paul would relish the chance to have further robust debates with both the Lib Dem and the Labour group. So I'll like I say, I'll keep it brief. The absolute minimum we can do is extend this, and our group wishes Paul all the very best in his battle to get better, and like I say, look forward to debating him again very soon.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. Anyone else wish to speak? In that case, lesson learnt. Councillor Newmark for your...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm proud to get up and support this motion this evening. It's the right thing to do. I'm advised that there's 2 occasions in recent history where something similar has had to happen. One, Councillor Bright referred to in terms of former Labour Councillor Len Silverstone. The other was Councillor Ernie Butler, and I know that both of those exemptions were granted with unanimity from across the chamber. Paul is very much missed, particularly for his sort of contribution to sort of financial related matters when they're debated in the chamber. I did have the opportunity to speak to Paul earlier. I gave him a call. He was busy. I'm pleased he was up and about and buttering a croissant that he'd left for too long on the Arga. So I thought that definitely sounds like things are moving in the right direction. I know he's watching our meeting this evening because he said there was nothing better on TV. I think you might need to review your subscription services. But as I said, it's good to hear that he has started to re-engage and will hopefully be back with us soon. The motion in front of us is the appropriate way to handle this situation. And in fact, when I spoke to Paul, I said to him that I did want to make a point of touching base with him personally before Council discussed a motion of such direct significance and importance to him. And then he proceeded to immediately give me his critique of the Bushy Golf and Country Club motion. I said, no, that true story. I said, that's not the one that I had in mind, but I think that's an example of the extent to which, even from his sort of sick bed or recovery bed, he is already re-engaging with the nuances of council business, and we look forward to him joining us again soon.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. Councillor Bright would like to sum up.
Just very briefly, I know that he was watching from 7 till 9. At 9 o'clock, he might have gone over to ITV to watch Help. I'm a celebrated Tory, get me out of here. But I know he'll be deeply touched by the comments tonight, because as I've said, at the end of the day, we're here to serve our residents. And if we get combative at times, we do so because we just come from a different place, but I think we all believe and agree in the same thing, and that's to make Hertsmere the best place it can be. And Paul's been someone who's always done that, and as I say, look forward, like you all do, to welcoming him back into the chamber. Thank you very much. I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. Members, the voting system should be active in a moment. There you go. Thank you. Yep, that's unanimous. So we shall move on to agenda item 15, urgent decision. Exempt from call-in. Members, no urgent decisions have been taken. So we'll move on to agenda item 16, report of leader of the council. So the process for dealing with the leader's report is clear. The leader will present their report followed by up to 5 minutes from the deputy leader. After that, there will be 45 minutes for questions and answers by the leader. This includes a response by the leader of the opposition, who may speak on matters relating to the report for the same length of time as the leader or a minimum of 10 minutes. After this, other members may wish to ask questions to the leader, advising personal statements and only raising questions on the matters raised by the leader. I will expect you to raise your questions on the leader strictly and not to make lengthy statements. Councillor Newmark may choose to call on a cabinet member or a committee chair to respond to the questions, so I now call upon the leader to report. Councillor Newmark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You'll be pleased to hear I'm going to try and keep this relatively brief because I'm keen to get to I know we're all keen to get to the motions this evening, particularly the motion about Martin Enney. I'm looking forward to that one. I'd like to begin by offering our deepest condolences to Councillor Amron on the sad loss of his father, and also to take this opportunity to thank members and officers for their condolences and visits on the loss of my father shortly before our previous full council meeting. It was deeply appreciated, and particularly to thank Councillor Clapper for the pasta bake, which was deeply appreciated as well. And obviously tremendous to see Councillor Shah back with us and on the road to recovery. The list of items in front of you on the agenda are all covered in the minutes of the various cabinet meetings and the webcasts, which I assume you all watched avidly, so I will not spend a great deal of time going over the detail of those, but I will make a few remarks on sort of recent events that the council has been centrally involved in, and some of the issues that I believe we're going to have to contend with, the challenges we're going to have to contend with over the weeks and months ahead. First of all, as we sort of move towards the winter festivities, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year, I was really thrilled that so many of us were able to participate. I was able to speak at Hertsmere's first Gala Diwali celebration, attended by literally hundreds and hundreds of members of the Indian community, held in Elstree's Alam Hall, and pay particular tribute to our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rani, for the absolutely splendid job she did in pulling that event together, and very much hope that with our collective support it becomes an annual feature of our civic calendar, one that is certainly long overdue. Obviously, as agreed in my absence at the last meeting of council, thank officers for their efforts in ensuring that the civic offices were lit up in yellow, commemorating a year on since the terrible events in southern Israel of October the 7th and the continued captivity, or in solidarity with the hostages, the Israeli hostages who remain held in Gaza in continued captivity now for over a year, and really to add my own voice of disgust to the fact that the ribbons and the Bring Them Home poster that had been sort of put up in Boreham Wood was vandalised, removed, stolen, and ribbons were cut over the past few days. I saw some comments on social media suggesting that somebody might have done this because there was nothing on the other side of the conflict. Well, let's be really clear, and I think this is a view that I hope will be shared across the chamber. There is Hamas, a genocidal terrorist organisation that sits on the other side of the conflict. It is Western, liberal, democratic, humanitarian values that sit on the side of the conflict, represented by those yellow ribbons and those posters. And in this borough, the notion that there is a legitimate other side to that particular conflict is not something that I, as leader of this council, and I believe most members of this chamber, will be prepared to tolerate. I'm also thrilled that at the start of next month we will be relaunching in partnership with the Town Council. Congratulations to Town Council leader, Councillor Alexander, and Boreham Wood Town Mayor, Councillor Collins, that we will be relaunching the refurbished Real Cinema in Boreham Wood, supported financially by both this council and the Town Council. I think that, as has been discussed at this council and received support from all sides, it would have been untenable if this borough, this town at the heart of the creative industries, would have been left without a cinema. And I'm really pleased that not only have we been able to save it, but in part tribute, I think, to the late Paul Welsh, we have been able to relaunch it with a film and TV heritage exhibit in the lobby area. I think that's really fitting tribute to Paul, and I think it's something very special that hopefully councillors will be able to join and attend on the 1st of December. I'm also pleased that some 18 months down the line, I was finally able, together with our chief executive, Sir Gita Bidgley, to hold the council administration's first meeting with Hertsmere MP Oliver Dowden. I think both ourselves on behalf of the council and Sir Oliver felt that it was an incredibly productive and useful meeting. We discussed a range of issues, from devolution to the expected new national planning policy framework, to the attitude of Herts County Council to the Bowman's Cross proposals, and the need to continue to jointly pressure the NHS Integrated Care Board to address the GP deficit in our borough. I'm pleased to say that Oliver has already taken up action on a number of those issues, making representations to the County Council and tabling written questions in Parliament. I'm also due to have another meeting with Hertsmere's other MP representing North Bushy, part of the expanded Watford constituency, Matt Termaine, before the end of this calendar year, and I will report back accordingly. On the issue of Shenley Park Trust that was referred to earlier in the question section, I think we've sort of been over the detail. I think everybody accepts that we do need to fill the place, and I'm asking members that in noting my report this evening, they also agree that the council will nominate Councillor Bright as the local county councillor as an additional representative and notify the trustees accordingly tomorrow so that he can take up office immediately. And I'm looking at our head of legal services to confirm that I've done that in the correct way.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bright, but of course the Mayor will be required to ask if there are any other nominations.
Okay, we'll do
and
that.
if there aren't, then the members can indicate their wishes.
Okay. Should we do that now, Mr Mayor?
That's fine with me, Councillor Newmark. Members, Councillor Bright, sorry, because this obviously refers to you, potentially. Are there any other nominations to the Shenley Park Trust appointment? Other than Councillor Bright. So is that agreed that Councillor Bright will be... Yep. Agreed? Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Congratulations, Councillor Bright. May you enjoy many happy hours of Zoom meetings and Village Hall sessions, rather you than me. I want to briefly address the issue of devolution and local government reorganisation. We already knew, and I already spoke at our last but one meeting about the potential impact of devolution on this authority and this area. As you will be aware, in the Chancellor's autumn budget statement, she also announced that in tandem with the expected white paper on devolution, we should expect to see proposals come forward, either within that white paper or very shortly afterwards, on the issue of local government reorganisation. And the sort of briefing that went out alongside that was fairly clear that this is with the possible view to unitarising borough and district councils like our own. My view on this, which a number of you have asked about recently, is I believe that people around here and businesses around here do want their local leaders to be more empowered to take the kind of decisions that will drive growth, drive prosperity, bring new homes and societal well-being. And I don't think the desire in Hertfordshire or in Hertsmere is any less great than it was in the industrial areas of Northern England before Andy Burnham, Steve Rotherham and the other metro mayors were elected. I think that desire is there. I think that people support the notion of local authorities being empowered to take more of the key decisions that actually impact upon people's lives and being resourced to do so. But as to the possibility of local government reorganisation bringing about simpler structures that make sense for local areas and efficiency savings, being solely focused, as have previous attempts at local government reorganisation, on seeking to unitarise district authorities. And we have particular experience of, in case of the previous administration at Herts County Council, perhaps the county jumping the gun on that to provoke united opposition across the various districts in the county. I have questions, and I have some very serious questions that need to be posed, because, as Cambridge University's Bennett Institute has set out, it is not at all a given that those mergers and larger local government structures can actually be shown to deliver those efficiencies and financial benefits that many claim will automatically ensue. I'm a firm believer in the fact that we need to continually remind ourselves that local government isn't just about lines on maps and boundaries. And I'm sure that this is actually the right time to have a debate on the way we need to move forward. But I'm equally sure that any debate around reorganisation, and any reorganisation itself, won't be easy and will be laden with new and unexpected risks. And as a Labour leader of this council, absolutely committed to playing our role in the government's new growth mission, I think one of the largest risks is the potential for an extended debate on reorganisation to actually take our eyes off the real prize, which is local delivery of that growth mission. Because reorganisation creates turbulence, and those who've been through the process before, and some of them sitting in the room, I can see Councillor Bright nodding, almost universally say that it really does prove a distraction from getting the day job done. So I do think that there is a clear and present danger that this really well-intentioned announcement could create the kind of organisational turbulence that will make us less effective in a lot of the key work that we're asked to perform. Reorganisation has to be done well to be helpful, and I want to set out 2 or 3 tests that I think should be applied to it. The first relates to democracy. If devolution and successive governments since the Blair government, certainly Brown, Cameron, Theresa May and so on, were all publicly committed to the notion of devolution. And they all saw devolution as something that resulted in a genuine shift of power away from the centre into localities. It seems to me that local government reorganisation runs the risk, if you are scooping up significant numbers of district and borough councils into larger, more centralised authorities, of doing exactly the opposite of what devolution is intended to do. Talking to somebody on the unitary council in North Yorkshire the other day, they told me it takes 3 hours to drive from one side to the other. So test number one is does it deliver genuine democratic devolution? Test number two is about modernisation, and it's not necessarily the case that bigger delivers better. And if we are going to have a debate about organisation, it's my own personal view that we need to look at potential new boundaries of local councils alongside the boundaries of other key public services like the NHS, the police and other public bodies, because I think it's by creating synergies there that the greatest rewards will be reaped. And finally, on finance, and I'm looking at our double hatter county councils here, who will perhaps be able to confirm this, but there's a huge elephant in the room, and it's called social care. And to put it really simply, the experience is that the ever-expanding, elastic budgets required to properly fund social care services end up draining resource from such key areas like housing, regeneration, planning, environment, waste collection, all of the stuff we do at the moment here that isn't susceptible to budget being drained out to social care. And I think that we will need to scrutinise any proposals that come forward and be absolutely certain that we are not putting our core day-to-day services at risk rather than keeping them sandboxed as they currently are. So, finally, I look at the economic evidence in our own area, in our own locality, that a strong, focused borough council is able to deliver the sort of local economy we need. And I look at the fact that we attracted Sky Studios to this area. I look at the success we have had in the cluster that includes Elstree Film Studios, BBC, Elstree, staying here under the new guise of Oxygen Studios, EastEnders having been here for 40 years and so on. And frankly, and this is really not a party political point, because none of this would have happened without the kind of intensive, ongoing nurturing, cultivation and relationship building undertaken at a local level by councillors of all parties and officers who were here on the ground able to deliver those relationships on a day-to-day basis. So, we're going to have a busy time, because between now and Christmas, we're going to get an MPPF, we're going to get the white paper on devolution and proposals on local government reorganisation, and we're going to get our finance settlement on the 19th of December. Friends, this is going to be an incredibly challenging period ahead. It's going to be particularly challenging for our officers, who we're going to be rightly calling upon to provide this council with the advice, guidance, analysis and expertise to enable us to address all of those challenges with the rigour, depth and robustness that are required. I think that on a number of those issues, this chamber will not divide along classic party political lines, and I look forward to working with all of you over the weeks and months ahead to ensure that on all of those issues we deliver the best possible results for local people in Hertsmere. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. Councillor Richards, do you wish to add anything as Deputy Leader? No? Okay, in that case, I will now call upon Councillor Morris Bright to respond on matters arising from the Leader's Report, and you have
17 minutes and 7 seconds.
17 minutes and 7 seconds, or 17 seconds was it? We'll work it out. I'll tell you to...
you know what, it's a really funny thing. That's the first time, I can honestly say in 18 months, that the Leader's speech didn't feel as long as the Leader's speech. I thought that was very, very interesting, or didn't feel as longer than the Leader's speech. I'd like to start with a look. Can I first of all, by the way, tell Councillor Gray that the continuous painting of the Forth Bridge actually stopped in December 2011, when they actually worked out a way of coming up with a paint that would last longer, and now the Forth Bridge is only painted in 25 years. I'm referencing something earlier on. for those, I don't get out very much. For those who are concentrating, I don't get out very much, but I was out today, I was out last night, I was out today in London, working with the Local Government Partnerships Board at the LGA, which comprises people from outside business, etc. and so on, and has cross-party, all-party representation, Conservative, Labour, Liberal and Independent. And why I echo the thoughts of what Councillor Newmark said right towards the very end. You know, I sat there for 6 hours today. It was a strategy day. How can we come up and help councils further? You know, any council across the country. I know that we had our peer review recently, and I know there's a draft report, but we'll get a full opportunity to discuss the report in January. And I still believe, as I said earlier, that we are joined by our intentions to try and make our areas better and good services, and it's just about the viewpoint. And I know that to be the case because I was at the Youth Council question time a couple of weeks ago. I was sat where Sajida is now. Next to me was Luke Garrard. Always place yourself next to Luke Garrard, the manager of Bournemouth, because that's where all the attention goes. And then there was the chair on the other side of me, but when I turned to Luke Garrard, I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he did it, but the leader of the council managed to sneak another chair in between myself and the chair of the question time. Young chap, great guy. And we had a really good discussion for about an hour and a half. And what Councillor Newmark said I had an epiphany. I had an epiphany that night. You need to look up where Councillor Gray's go. What's an epiphany? But I had an epiphany that night. Councillor Newmark said, at the end of the day, if we're not here, us councillors, or him as leader, or as me, etc., he said, the bins will still be emptied. He said, you'll still get stuff done in the local area. And so, why are we here? You know, we can argue when we need to, we can do a bit of theatrics, because actually it gets us through 4 hours. But the main work actually goes on outside of here. If you think about what goes on in this meeting tonight, it's all reports that have either been through Cabinet and have been agreed, and for us to comment on and vote on again, or matters that have to come directly here. There's very little debate that goes on. It's just a bit of toing and froing. And I think passion is a good thing in politics. I've sat in many, many meetings over the years that last half the length of these and seem 2-3 times as long. And I think people are beginning to get into a rhythm into this council now. I think we're seeing a bit more, a bit more of this going on from all sides. And I think that's good, because I think that debate is healthy. And I think if I can sit in a room, as I did a few years ago, when the last time we were looking at devolution, when the former Conservative leader of the County Council wanted to see devolution come forward. And I had to sit in rooms with the leaders of all the other authorities in Hertfordshire, Labour, Conservative, Peter Taylor, now Baroness Taylor, you don't have to be called Taylor to be a leader, but it helps, all of them together, and we found a way forward to say, no, actually, we're not prepared to accept this. And that's when we came up with the headline, we want unity, not unitary. And I think we can do that, and I think it might be nice if we could do that a bit more here, but I do understand why there were going to be different viewpoints taken. We had a different viewpoint tonight on planning. None of us disagree with the situation that planning committee itself, and you mentioned the MPPF, and we're going to hear about that in a couple of weeks' time, and we look forward to hearing about that. None of us can deny that the planning committee should be able to make the decisions it needs to be able to make. It should not feel in any way threatened politically or otherwise by us, the leadership or so on. They have to make the decisions based on the rules and the laws in front of them, and sometimes that will throw up conflict. And it wasn't very helpful tonight when people throw comments across the chamber. Yes, I'm looking at you, Councillor Oakley, to us saying, well, you did this and you used to vote for this and you used to vote for that and then vote the other. We were all in a meeting, right? When Sky application, the immediate application before Sky was Potter's Bar, building 50 flats on a car park, brownfield, recommended for approval. Labour voted against it. The now committee chair voted against it. Fine. Officers recommended approval, they voted against it. The next item was to cut a huge swathe of Boreham Wood out for the extension of Sky Studios, Greenbelt, which officers also recommended. Labour voted for it, the Potter's Bar members. The Liberal Democrat, who was the chair at the time, voted against, and his casting vote meant that it was rejected and it's gone to appeal. But people, I'm not sitting there thinking, well, you're voting that because you're Conservative, and you're voting that because you're Labour, and you're voting that because you're Liberal, because you're not. You're in there as a member of the planning committee doing what you think is the very best at the time, and you've got to be able to justify that. And yes, there is a cost to democracy. I've always said that, and I know that officers try and screw it down so that we don't spend too much. But if people genuinely feel and have got reasons to be able to knock back something, then they should let the law and dictate, and we should not be criticising anybody, historically or now, for the decisions that they took. I think that when it comes to the budget, we've had various discussions about the budget tonight. I don't really want to keep going through the government budget. At the end of the day, right, it's the Councillor Shilton, he was a football player, wasn't he, Peter Shilton? Councillor Shenton and Councillor Allen correctly surmised before that we are here to do things that we can do under the guise and the jurisdiction and the purview of Hertsmere Borough Council. So we can all sit here, and I can be looking when Councillor Newmark is waxing lyrically about the budget and growth. I can be looking at Councillor Alexander, who respectfully is the only one I really trust out of all that lot, to see whether or not he's smiling, whether he's nodding, whether he's got his head in his hands, or whether he's gone for a convenient toilet break. And he was playing a good poker face tonight, was Councillor Alexander, because of course he works at the Bank of England, and Councillor Newmark seems to think there's going to be great growth. But we know inflation has just peaked a little bit, and interest rates have gone up a little bit, and mortgage rates are going to be held a little bit longer. So we know that the growth may not be quite as quick as we think. But at the end of the day, these are just our views. Our residents are saying, let the government do what they're doing. What are you doing for our area? You're the ones that are in charge of Greenbelt. Yeah, you can blame the government as much as you like. You're the ones making the decision. And that's why Councillor Oakley needs to learn very quickly what Greybelt is. Right? It's not very helpful when the portfolio holder, the cabinet member for planning, cannot say in a public meeting that she understands what Greybelt development is, or etc. It doesn't ring very, very positively. And I hear the reasons why we haven't got a planning. I hear the reasons why we haven't got a local plan yet, and I'm not going to rehearse those. We'll see what comes when it comes. To move towards the end of what I want to say tonight, Councillor Newmark talked about, as I say earlier on, about devolution. It's not a silver bullet. And that's why, and there is not one size fits all, which is why we've got so many different ways of doing it throughout the country. I'm not sure I want to go down where Buckinghamshire have gone, and I know Martin Tetlerleader very well, but he's got like a group of 100 and something people, and it's a couple of hundred councillors. And don't tell me when we are representing at borough level 7,000 people, and county councils 12,000, then you move to a unitary, we lose that closeness to our people. And if we're saying it's about being in touch with what they want, then putting ourselves into a position where there are less local members who can contact their local people less, then I don't actually think that particularly works. And I do believe that with sensible budgeting, the benefits of keeping things as they are can be done. I'm not saying it for any reason that I seek any re-election in the years ahead, as many of you will know. I'm stepping back as the leader of the Conservative group. In May, I gave a year's notice, as it were, in May, and I copied in Councillor Newmark, Councillor Richards, Sajida, to say I've done 16 years as leader of the council, 2 years as leader of the opposition. We need to bring new people through, new blood through. So I'm not saying it because I'm thinking, oh, I know, we can get this, that. No, I'm saying it because I believe after 25 years, and knowing people I know, and knowing people like your father, and you when you were, well, you were always taller than me, but when you were young, right? I know that we want to be able to speak with our people and contact our people. And if we find it's harder to do it, and look at the criticisms that get made about county council, if we end up in that situation, we're not going to be very close to our people at all. So I think that I support Councillor Newmark in his efforts to try and get that message across to government. It's one of the rare occasions where I'll support him writing a letter to the Secretary of State without coming to us first. I think it's appropriate that he does so. I sat on an all-party group of, with the LGA, so it was House of Lords, Members of Parliament, and I was there as the councillor looking at Devo a couple of years ago, and I interviewed Andy Burnham. Great guy, I really like Andy Burnham, like I like Andy Street. But when the former Conservative leader of the County Council, David Williams, when someone said, well, give us another area, another authority on its own that would be 1.2 million people, he shouted out Birmingham. And suddenly everyone went, well, what suits Birmingham may suit Birmingham, but what suits Hertfordshire will not be the same. We don't want to be compared with others. 1.2 million people. It could mean splitting us up into 2 county councils and 600,000 or 2 unitaries, elected mayors and so on. And as you say, as Councillor Newmark rightly says, at a time when the economy, and I know the economy has been sluggish, Councillor Shenton called it anemic for 14 years, forgetting that his lot were in bed with us for 5 years under coalition. What is it about you and coalition and finances? You've got to remember that. And so you've got to understand that I think that anything that takes their eye off the ball for this government, because I don't wish them financial failure, because if it is, it's the residents and the people of this country that will suffer. We want to see things go better here. I was in America for half term for the first time in 5 years. Florida with my 2 boys, not all my children, with my 2 boys. And my youngest is 15, Jonah, very interested in American politics. And it was very interesting when you got to watch the news over there and see things in much more detail than you get to see over here when you get maybe 30 seconds or 60 seconds of a clip every night. And because we did a bit of self-catering, it's quite expensive, and I went to the supermarkets, Publix, CVS, Walmart. And what was astonishing was the cost of all the fruit and the veg and the fish and the meat and the medicines, not because of the bad dollar to pound rate, not 1.3, even taking that into account. And you could see, and I turned around to Jonah and said, Trump will win next week, and bigger than people imagine. Because people felt worse off, people felt poorer, and yes, it is about the economy, stupid, as someone once said all those years ago. And I think that's one of the reasons we saw the results however many months ago in the general election. And so we don't wish bad times on anybody, particularly our residents here in Hertsmere. And so, yes, I do welcome very much what Councillor Newmark is doing, and him recognising that outside of here there are conversations that continue to be had. And on that basis, Mr Mayor, can I thank you again that you and I may not see each other here for a couple of months, but we may see each other at Shenley Park Trust, because I believe you're the other nomination and you're the other member, and I will check to see if you're actually officially out that night on mayoral business, or whether or not you're using it as an excuse not to attend, because I don't want to be there on my own. No, I am grateful. Colleagues, thank you for listening to me, and as I said, thank you very much indeed. That's my response to the report.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. Councillor Newmark, do you wish to respond to that first, or do you want to take some additional questions?
Thank you, Councillor Bright. There weren't too many specific questions in there. I'll just respond briefly on the budget and inflation. I'll take 2% any day over figures that look like they were soaring towards 11% and plus. I don't know if people saw PMQs or deputy PMQs this morning when Angela Rayner took on. I'm sorry, I genuinely don't even know the chap's name, who's shadow deputy prime minister. But I think they did this one to a death, and I concur with Angela on all of that. On Devo, look, he mentioned the. How can I put it? Very strong rumours coming from all sorts of directions that there might be an attempt to marry or engender a forced marriage between Hertfordshire and Buckinghamshire. The only way I can characterise that is like the sort of 2 out of 3 components of Three Counties Radio being joined together. Anyone who's ever listened to Three Counties Radio probably has a sense of where that might end up. And look, I also completely agree with and endorse his comments about bringing a new generation of leadership through at member and council level, and I particularly sort of think about the contributions we've heard this evening from a number of our new councillors, Councillor Amron, Councillor Giorgio, Councillor Rani, and superb speech from Councillor Sullivan earlier. So yeah, I think that covers the sort of questions in your remarks.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. Members, just to let you know that the leaders' part will finish at 10:15, because I know we haven't got the timer up. And additional questions. Councillor Adechikaza, I know you had your hand up. So do you want to go first, and then I'll get some more? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the leader mentioned in his update, that yes, Alum Hall did play host to the Diwali celebrations earlier this month. And I know Councillor Newmark, along with other dignitaries, were present during the night who enjoyed themselves thoroughly. So, but that being said, I know it was a town council-led initiative. So can I ask the leader if there'll be a borough-led initiative in 2025 regarding Diwali? Thank you.
Jeremy, sorry, Councillor Newmark rather. Do you want to take this in threes, yeah? Okay, Councillor Clapper, please.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Just wanted to speak on a couple of things. Firstly, with regards to devolution or local government reorganisation, whatever you want to call it. I'm glad you had a productive meeting with our Member of Parliament, Oliver Dowden. It was definitely the conversation at LGA, that's all anyone seemed to be speaking about was about Devo. I'm not saying that I know the answer or where we're going to go, but I definitely think that there are ways in which our local authorities could be more efficient. I find it quite ridiculous, and residents don't care about this, by the way, that when somebody dumps some rubbish, if it's on the pavement, they speak to one authority. If it's on the road, they speak to another authority. I think people get really frustrated with that. And one of the reasons I became a Twin Hatter is because I came into this job to serve people, and turning around to somebody and saying, oh, actually, as soon as it gets there, it's no longer my responsibility, speak to another councillor. I feel like I can serve people best that way. So I think I completely agree that anything needs to be aligned with the NHS and the police. But I think it's really fair to say that one size does not fit all. So we have to come up with a solution that's going to give the best outcome for both our residents in Hertsmere and for the whole of Hertfordshire. And just the other thing I wanted to quickly mention was very excited about the relaunch of the Real Cinema. It's fantastic that we're going to have the exhibit there. Great tribute to Paul Welsh. Really grateful to the Town Council for making this happen. I'd be very interested to know exactly what is going to be the kind of, because it's very important we have a cinema in our town, what is going to be the longer term plan for this? How sustainable is it? How long has the Town Council effectively subsidised or funded this for? And what are we going to look to do in the future for this very important site? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gray, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, reflecting on the whole Devo piece, obviously, whenever we talk about devolution, there's going to be some good points to it and some bad points to it. I suppose, though, picking up on your point about the kind of granular detail and stuff on the ground, what kind of mechanisms will we have, or do you know, that will allow our voice to be heard and heard strongly? Thank you.
Councillor Newmark, you've had three.
Thank you. Councillor Kaza, again, to absolutely echo my real praise and endorsement of the groundbreaking Diwali event. Obviously, there were elements of that the Borough Council supported directly. My own view is that sometimes community events are delivered better when it's from the ground up, but I certainly take on board your call for Hertsmere to be more centrally involved and help to facilitate the expansion of that event in time for next year's celebrations, and we will certainly see what can be done in terms of enhancing Hertsmere's role in not only what is an important religious festival, but I think also an important recognition of the tremendous role that the Indian community plays in and around this borough, the contribution they make to our civic life, and the contribution they make on so many other levels. Councillor Clapper, as you say, devolution definitely dominated the airwaves, both above the radar and very much below the radar at the LGA conference. I think you're right that we do need to deliver greater efficiencies, but I think we're actually really privileged to be living in an era in which there are many options for delivering those efficiencies at the same time as actually improving services. I'm thinking about the impact that use of AI in local government will have, particularly on some of the areas you were talking about, like having to report issues multiple times across multiple authorities and so on. And so not only does one size not fit all, but there are also, to use another cliche, many different ways to skin a cat. So yes. And then in terms of the cinema, the exhibit and so on, the funding package that's been put together by Hertsmere and Elstree and Bournemouth Town Council guarantees the continuation of the current cinema arrangements in terms of the Real at the Point for at least 3 years. During that time, it is my intention, and already made some significant advances in that regard, to leverage the 50th anniversary of Hertsmere, the 100th anniversary of Elstree Film Studios, to really put not just the presence of a cinema at the heart of the borough front and centre of opportunities for growth moving forward, but the broader piece around celebrating, galvanising our creative industries at the heart of the growth we want to achieve. We are at the very early stages of putting together a feasibility study for a more permanent film and TV exhibit that you're aware of from discussions at the Elstree Film Studios board. Don't want to say too much about that at this stage, but people will be aware that immersive experiences appear to be the way forward to do these things in a modern, high-tech way. They seem to be generating revenue as well, and I think we can do some really exciting stuff here. We've got the feasibility funding thanks to support from the council and Hearts Futures, the local enterprise partnership, and once that feasibility work has been completed, I'll come back to council with a more detailed update. And we are also at very early stages of discussions with our current cinema providers and other possible providers about a significantly enlarged offering in that regard for the borough that would be a destination in its own right. So exciting possibilities, and I'm really keen and actually quite impatient to get them moving over the period in which we will be celebrating that centenary. Councillor Gray, on devolution, look, the one thing I will say is that, without commenting on what went previously, what we have seen since the general election is a renewed sense of engagement between central government and local government. The doors of ministers, their advisors, their SPADs, their teams are absolutely open to engagement on this issue. I had a meeting with one of the Taylors, Baroness Taylor, in her capacity as a minister at MHCLG, I think that's what we're calling it now, earlier this week. Devolution was one of a number of items on the agenda. It is very clear that we are now dealing with a government that is open to having the conversations, however difficult and challenging they may be, and that's part of the reason that I felt empowered to make the remarks Ira made earlier, and hope that won't get into too much trouble over them.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. Members, as everyone knows, the meeting normally finishes at 10 p.m. However, if we continue, we are obviously going to pass that. So may I ask, do you wish to continue till 10:30? Yep, thank you. In that case, I'll take another 3 questions. Councillor Giorgio, please, and then Councillor Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While reviewing our financial figures alongside the Financial Monitors panel, I'm aware that there are comparatively small amounts of bad debt related to benefit overpayment and council tax which need to be written off due to little prospect of those debts being recovered. With the move to universal credit, these debts have been decreasing. However, there is a growing issue of 15,000 carers in the UK facing thousands of pounds of repayments due to minor infringements, and which could impact their ability to pay council tax. Following the government's independent review of benefits, in your opinion, do you foresee a decrease in Hertsmere debt being accrued and possibly written off in the future? Thank you.
Councillor Green.
Thank you. Will Councillor Newmark join me in thanking all involved in organising the exciting Generation Hertsmere event? I personally love to see so many businesses and initiatives. What did he most enjoy about the day?
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Early tonight, we passed a new temporary accommodation strategy, which is a really important step to help people in urgent need of a place to stay. But we all know that this is only a short-term solution. If we want to tackle homelessness properly, we need to build a lot more social housing. I'm really pleased to see what we're starting to do just that. In my ward, Cowley Hill, the new Windsor Close development is well underway, with 43 social rented homes set to be finished next year. These are high-quality, energy-efficient homes that will make a real difference for local families who need them. And this isn't just a one-off. Earlier this year, we also approved 149 social and truly affordable homes at Lyndhurst Farm, Boreham Wood. That's another fantastic project that shows we're serious about building the homes our community needs. Let's be honest, the previous Tory administration barely made a dent in our social housing shortage. For years, they didn't deliver anywhere near enough homes, leaving families stuck on long waiting lists and struggling with high rents. But we're changing that. We're showing what can be done when you have a council that's committed to making real progress. Would the leader agree with me that projects like Windsor Close and Lyndhurst Farm prove that we're not just talking about tackling the housing crisis, we're actually doing something about it, and we're just getting started. We need to keep this momentum going, keep building more social homes, and make sure everyone in Hertsmere has a secure, affordable place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Newmark, you've had 3 questions.
Thank you, Councillor Giorgio. Look, fiscal predictions are not my expertise, and that could be difficult territory to get into. I think you're absolutely right to flag that as a very real and present risk. But at the same time, I believe that the extension of the Household Support Fund, in fact the massive extension of the Household Support Fund that would have been ended by the previous Tory government, will help to go some way towards mitigating that risk, as will the huge injection of funds due to promised to local authorities by Rachel Reeves to deal with issues like prevention of homelessness and temporary accommodation. So yes, of course there's always risk, but at the same time I'm pleased to see that funds are being invested in putting up the kind of guardrails that will help people avoid dealing with the ultimate consequences of debt in that way. Councillor Green, Generation Hertsmere, I mean, what a fantastic event. Huge congratulations to both portfolio holder, but particularly Leslie Crisp, for her incredible work on that. I mean, it just gets bigger every year. We have definitely outgrown that venue. We need to find somewhere where we can fit a lot more exhibitors and certainly a lot more young people. I know the Twilight discussion sessions were really popular. Apart from the developer who brought along a full-scale VR thing, which was a sort of real highlight, particularly if you get motion sickness, like myself. But the real highlight was, I said this at the Youth Council event that Councillor Bright referred to earlier, is that if you ever need a bit of inspiration when you're involved in sort of local political life, go visit a school, go talk to some of our local youth, go to a youth centre, talk to young people, and the ability to have that direct engagement under a Hertsmere rubric, a council brand, is something that I found absolutely fantastic. We don't do enough of it, and we need to ensure, and we have plans to ensure, that that kind of engagement is enhanced and increased over the years ahead. Councillor Smith, couldn't agree with you more. As I said earlier, ultimately, private rented accommodation is not the solution to the housing crisis. More social homes, more affordable homes, innovative mechanisms for delivering those homes are really important. I think we have started to shift the dial. I believe we've delivered more social homes since the start of this administration than previous administration did in their last 4-year term, and I believe we've granted approvals for more than they did in their last 3 terms. I think those are numbers we can be proud of, but they remain a drop in the ocean in comparison to the size of the challenge. I think the Chancellor's made a really important and significant decision in terms of ending the sort of problematic elements of the right to buy provision that made it much more difficult for councils to hold stock. I'm not saying that for Hertsmere becoming a stockholding authority is necessarily the correct way forward, although that is something that we will make an assessment of moving forward. But I think the kind of innovative partnership that we developed through our chief executive with Herts Living Limited is absolutely an example of a good midpoint between stockholding or actually using our funds wisely to ensure delivery and effective management of, I guess, a new generation of council homes to benefit the people in this borough.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. Any additional questions? It's open till £15:15, if there is anyone. No, in that case, thank you, Councillor Newmark. In that case,
point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, please.
Thank you. I'd like to move under Council Procedural Rules 13C to change the order of business on the agenda and move motions on notice and opposition business up to be heard next. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Yep, that's seconded. Thank you. Is that in agreement, members? Yep. Okay. In that case, members, I'll move to agenda item 20, the tribunals and appeals for SEN, special educational needs. There will be up to 6 speakers, with the proposer getting 3 minutes and everyone else getting 2 minutes. So can I call upon Councillor Maxie Allen to move the motion, please?
This is a country where we can waste £800 million on the Rwanda scheme, but can't look after children who need extra help at school. SEND, Special Educational Needs and Disabilities, is in crisis, especially here in Hertfordshire. A year ago, Ofsted found widespread and systemic failings in the provision of SEND by Hertfordshire County Council. Our children are forced to wait up to 78 weeks for help, and even when it arrives, many EHCP, the plans for individual children, are of poor quality. Local children who most need support, those with autism, delays, epilepsy and disabilities, are abandoned and left to struggle alone. The stress and anguish for their parents need hardly be explained. Many give up their jobs to homeschool. One cause is the tight-fisted funding formula from the previous Conservative government. Hertfordshire received the 3rd lowest rate of cash per SEND child in the country. But some of the blame, maybe much of it, must lie with the Conservative leadership of Hertfordshire County Council. Whether mismanagement or willful apathy, the fact is they allowed a slow-motion car crash to unfold before their eyes. Now, since Ofsted, they say they're on the case and will patch things up. Their rescue plan is unconvincing, and there's one problem they can easily fix but try to hide from. That's the issue of tribunals. Many parents appeal when Hertfordshire provide poor EHCPs or refuse them altogether. There were 514 appeals last year, but the council often refuses to back down, and nearly a fifth of cases end up at tribunal, where parents are forced to go to court and virtually beg for their child to get a proper education. And here's the rub. Hertfordshire County Council lose 94% of those tribunals. That's 94%. The agony is prolonged for no purpose. Everyone loses. For parents, even more stress and anguish. For the local authority, a total waste of resources, which could help pay for proper EHCPs in the first place, rather than drag parents through the ringer out of sheer bloody-mindedness. The council could end this practice. Instead, they've tried to stop people talking about it. At Hertfordshire Full Council last month, they kicked a motion on this very subject into Row Z by filibustering it out of sight. Tonight, we can help make amends by calling on all 3 group leaders in this chamber to send a simple message to the County Council leader. Stop pursuing tribunals they're bound to lose. Stop piling more pain on families who've suffered enough. Spend the money on supporting children, not their corporate ego.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. I call upon Councillor Green to second the motion or reserve a right.
Thank you very much. Members, we have a lot in common. And one of those things is that I'm sure that we all went to school. But unless you're a teacher, unless you have school-aged children or grandchildren, how many of us really think about how much it costs to educate a child? And more importantly, what does it cost society if we don't? And this matter is even more critical when we think about special needs funding and provision. The Education, Health and Care Plan, HCP, system aims to bring under one plan all that children will need, from their school, their social services and hospitals. But even more excitingly, this plan involves a child's aspiration. Each assessment considers what a child wants to achieve in the future and works backwards to help them achieve it. I'm sure I don't need to remind you that the County Council is responsible for securing provision for the EHC plan and is indeed now responsible for education of children with special needs up to the age of 25. And that's a good thing because many young people with special needs are left high and dry when they turn 18 with limited access to the job market or further education. It's cruel to tell a parent that their child's future aspirations rely on a specific service, but Hertfordshire has failed to provide it and has sat on its hands and appears to have been waiting for someone to conjure up something out of nothing. Because everyone talks about affordability of healthcare for policing and education. And if the reasons are funding, then we need to look in the eyes of parents and children with special needs and tell them they might have to wait weeks. I want to quote to you from a frustrated parent. They need to cross out the line that says, Nathan wants to go to university, Nathan wants to live an independent life.
It is time to stop, Councillor Green.
They should just say it's what we can afford.
Sorry, thank you. Councillor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. While I appreciate the intention behind this motion to address challenges within our SEND system, I must challenge its framing, proposed solutions and its discussion here in Hertsmere, when this is clearly a Hertfordshire County Council matter. The pressures on SEND services, both nationally and in Hertfordshire, are significant. The 46% rise in SEND appeals reflects families' frustrations. And while we acknowledge the system hasn't always delivered, we must also recognise the substantial progress that has been made. To put this into context, Hertfordshire supports over 12,600 children with EHCPs. Fewer than 1 in 20 appealable decisions have actually led to an appeal. Over half of these were resolved before tribunal, proof that our focus on early mediation is working. This is backed by Hertfordshire County Council's £7 million per annum investment, which has expanded capacity with 138 new staff, over 50% of those with lived SEND experience. In 2024, we completed 77% more annual reviews and improved EHCP timelines to 56%, exceeding both last year and the national average. The suggestion to automatically concede tribunal cases oversimplifies decision-making. Our duty is to ensure fairness, equity and sustainability across all SEND cases. Automatically conceding would create imbalances in resource allocation, harming the wider SEND population. Instead, our approach focuses and prioritises fairness and early resolution, reducing stress for families and ensuring children receive support sooner. We are also addressing demand for specialist education with a £137 million capital programme, creating 800 special school places. These improvements are no accident, but the result of deliberate strategic decisions. In contrast, what deliberate strategies are Labour and the Liberal Democrats offering? A 50% funding cut to still developer contributions earmarked for education, blocking the delivery of special school places for Hertsmere's children. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clapper. Councillor Giorgio, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hold this motion close to my heart as the eldest brother of 4. My youngest brother, who is 10 years old, has autism. My mum and stepdad have been waiting for months for his special educational needs care plan. Despite countless calls to his SENCO, he is still not receiving the support he needs. I know that our experience is common to thousands of parents, some of whose children attend Barracuda Swimming Club in my hometown of Potters Bar. They have also been waiting for months on end, worrying about whether their children will receive the help that they need. This motion is ultimately the County Council's responsibility. Hertsmere Borough Council has spent hundreds of thousands of pounds supporting County Council services, such as with the 84B bus. We have also approved a proportionate and generous amount of community infrastructure levy of £769,000 towards a new SEND school, with nearby councils agreeing similar amounts. Councillor Clapper, we therefore have earned a say in this. There has been a 140% increase in children with SEND between 2015 and 2024, according to the National Audit Office. The causes of these increased rates are numerous. A recent study by Professor Amal from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, published in the Metro paper last week, showed that fetuses exposed to air pollution are significantly more likely to develop autism. This warrants a justified fear in parents that their unborn children may be similarly harmed. If County also acts on our recent 20s Plenty motion, this would prevent future harm. Minister for Children, Families and Wellbeing, Janet Davey, has promised a child-centred government. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has increased funding for local authorities with £1.3 billion grant funding, £650 million for adult social care, £1 billion for SEND, with an additional £650 million for local transport. Stopping useless appeals, tribunals and associated costs are an obvious place to save money and ensure we're properly supporting some of the most vulnerable people in our society. County also need to spend strategically to reduce disability and improve SEND services.
10
Otherwise,
seconds.
adult social care costs will increase in future also. HCC need to stop spending pounds to save pennies or else risk their seats at the next county election. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Giorgio. Councillor Ponder, please.
Yes, thank you very much. When I read this motion being brought to full council, I want to take the opportunity to speak on a personal level rather than a political basis. I have a disabled son who turned 18 earlier this year, and I've first-hand experienced delays and lack of information included DHCPs produced by HCC. Whilst the staff members try to assist, the lack of funding available and constraints they encounter are clearly obvious. On occasions, the HCPs aren't even produced, and old and outdated information is relied on. Again, we've had first-hand experience of our son's EHCP not being updated for 3 years, although we've attended annual reviews. It's become apparent that these are produced solely for the County Council's best interest and not the individuals. Key information is not disclosed and the HCPs don't advocate for what the child actually needs. Whilst we haven't yet experienced going to appeal or tribunal, we know of other parents in the borough and county who have. This causes unnecessary distress on the individual and their family members, only because the County Council doesn't want to fund what is actually required. I strongly urge all members here to support this incredibly important motion so that the three group leaders can together write to the leader of the Hertfordshire County Council and ask him to affect the objectives of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ponder. Councillor Bright, please.
Mr Mayor, at the last Hertfordshire County Council meeting, 3 motions were presented. The first on flooding, one on pensioners' winter fuel allowance, and one on special education needs provision, and in that order. And as in every council, as we have here across the country, there are time limits for agenda items, as there are here tonight. There was much interest in the flooding motion presented by the Lib Dems. Parts of Hertfordshire were suffering very badly, you'll remember. There were 2 river deaths at the time, homes in Potters Bar were flooded, areas of Hitchin were evacuated. In the winter fuel allowance debate, the Liberals supported the Conservatives, unlike here, where the Labour-Lib Dem coalition stopped our motion midway. Yes, Lib Dem County Councillor Lawrence Brass stormed out of the meeting shouting, "This is so boring," everyone's seen the video. Not his first such outburst at county, but one which was offensive to pensioners, as is Councillor Allen's use of the word needless in this motion when describing the length of the winter fuel allowance debate, which he wasn't even at. None of them were. The first snow of the winters have arrived this week, and tonight it will be -4 degrees. Our pensioners are very worried. They should not be dismissed that way. And so we didn't get to the SEND debate, although the leader of the County Council, Richard Roberts, had, if you'd watched the webcast, already made clear comments and commitments about special education needs earlier in the meeting when he got up to speak. But that gets overlooked here. I wonder why. We have big issues in Hertsmere that we can have an immediate effect on. We talked about this earlier, that we can have influence over. I sat with the Hertfordshire Chief Inspector this week, Hertfordshire's Crime Chief Inspector this week. Overall crime is down, but big problems around drugs, drug-related deaths at all levels of our communities, increases in domestic abuse. Look at our high streets. The standard you walk past is the standard you set. So let's focus on the areas that we can actually affect here. Let's avoid using precious and limited time, borough meeting time, for county council matters. They've enough councillors of all parties, 22 or 23 Lib Dems. They can do their work themselves. Let's do our work here and make the change that we really can in the short time that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. Councillor Allen, would you like to sum up, please?
So on one hand, we're told we can't talk about this because it's not a borough council issue, and also told that we couldn't talk about it before because winter fuel was more important. Both of those things can't be true at the same time. I recognise, obviously, the funding problems. I think we have to look to the previous government for the source of that. I also recognise that Councillor Clapper has inherited an extremely bad situation, but the fact remains that Hertfordshire County Council have lost SEND parents' confidence, and it will take many years to get that confidence back. But essentially, we've ultimately heard plenty of pushback and no grasping of the issue with tribunals. And no wonder, because given the track record, SEND is kryptonite for their party in Hertfordshire, and they know that. Hence the pushback and hence the delaying tactics in the County Council chamber last month. Push it away, close it down. That's always easier than taking responsibility. The fact remains that the County Council lose 94% of their tribunals. A fifth of cases go to tribunal. The County Council is almost bound to lose them. So why pursue them? Let's stop that. So our message should be, let's send out a clear and united message on this. No more forcing parents to tribunals. The County Council is bound to lose. No more wasting public money. No more harm to children who most need support. Frankly, I can see no conceivable argument against that.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Right, members, obviously we'll be going to the vote on the electronic voting system. So if members can vote on that, please. I'll ask you, Councillor Abedek-Tatev, how do you intend to vote, please? Against? Yes, thank you. Okay, the motion is passed. Thank you.
Mayor, can I ask for legal guidance, please, from the head of legal? Because Council has just requested that I write to the leader of the County Council. Can you ask the head of legal to give his view on whether or not what my position in this is? I'm not making any judgment. I just need to know what my position is, please.
I can advise you outside, but it is a request. You have your own discretion how you deal with it. Pardon?
I think
the motion is...
can we just move...
requested to write.
Thank you. We're going to move on. You can have a chat with the other leaders outside this meeting. We're going to move on to agenda item 21, opposition business. As before now, we can... you're right there, Councillor Coulty. Yeah. All right, okay. Let's move on. Okay, agenda item 21, opposition's business. As before, we're now... okay, I'm just going to move on. You're up to 6 speakers on this proposal, getting 2 minutes after that for summing up. So I'm going to call on Councillor Clapper, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Today I rise to propose a motion that celebrates diversity as a driving force in our borough and country. Representation and meritocracy are at the heart of progress, and I am proud to bring this conversation to the Council chamber. Council notes and welcomes the historic election of Kemi Badenoch MP as leader of the Conservative Party in His Majesty's opposition. Kemi Badenoch is not only the first black woman to lead a major UK political party, but her rise is a testament to her talent and the open-minded meritocracy of our party. This is not about quotas, it's about recognising excellence wherever it emerges. Her election has been met with positivity from across the political spectrum, including Sir Keir Starmer and Sir Ed Davey, showing this milestone transcends party lines and is a moment of national pride. Closer to home, Hertsmere reflects these values. We are the second most diverse borough in Hertfordshire, with a long history of welcoming people from all backgrounds and faiths. In my own ward, I'm particularly proud to represent Back to Vedanta Manor, home to the Hare Krishna community. I regularly visit and attend their festivals, which are a vibrant celebration of faith and culture. Last month, I attended the Diversity Festival in Boreham Wood, organised by the amazing Martine Ennie and her team. The festival was a resounding success. I was very pleased to sit on a panel with Jeremy Newmark, leader of the opposition, discussing cultural bias, an enlightening and necessary conversation. Events like this remind us of the richness of our community. Hertsmere is lucky to be home to residents from 80 countries, speaking more than 50 languages and practicing a myriad of faiths. I stand here proudly this evening wearing my 3-0 badge. Can you all see it over there, whoever's not wearing their glasses? A reminder that the Conservative Party now boasts 3 female leaders in its history. Neither Labour nor the Liberal Democrats can claim even one. I was proud to serve as Hertsmere's first female deputy leader, and I'm delighted to see women continuing in key leadership roles, including our female chief executive, Sajida Boujle. Our achievements prove that when talent and merit are prioritised, the glass ceiling can and will be shattered. Mr Mayor, the United States has yet to elect a female head of state. Here in Hertsmere and across the UK, we demonstrate that diversity and leadership go hand in hand. Let us resolve to keep championing diversity, not as a box ticking exercise, but as a celebration of strength, by recognising talent, nurturing merit and embracing the richness of our community. Hertsmere will remain a beacon of progress and unity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clapper. Councillor Sarah Hodgson-Jones, do you wish to second it or reserve your right?
I rise to second this motion. I want to say how proud I am to have a woman of colour leading my party. The election of Kemi Badenoch as the first black woman to lead a major UK political party signals the next stage in our journey towards equality. In Kemi, we can adopt an intersectional lens that embraces diversity, seeks to eradicate discrimination, and work towards more inclusive practice in society. But this election goes beyond levelling the playing field and goes some way to challenging the notion of ableism that has dominated politics for too long. We welcome the very positive comments from Sir Keith Starmer and Sir Ed Davey, who I'm sure agree what a breath of fresh air it is to be working alongside a woman of colour with lived experience of the global south. What a contrast from any pale, stale, male symbol of North London's metropolitan elite. Kemi's election represents the changing face of the 21st century. Indeed, Hertsmere is the second most diverse borough in Hertfordshire, with a long history of diverse backgrounds and multi-faiths. I would like to thank local campaigner Martine Ennie for her continued commitment towards inclusivity as we celebrated the Diversity Festival in Boreham Wood last month. I recommend this motion to the Council.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson-Jones. Councillor Graham-Alexander, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support the thanks offered to Martine Ennie and her team for putting together another excellent diversity festival, celebrating the full range of faiths and cultures here that we have in Hertsmere. As leader of the Labour-led Town Council, I'm also proud that we were able to provide a £1,500 grant to the project, and I would also like to thank Borough Councillors for their support from their WIS allocations. Labour Councillors provided £700 in WIS funding, and with a further £550 from Conservative councillors. So thank you very much for that. But the final word goes to Martine Ennie, who puts in her heart and soul into this event year after year, and OBE surely beckons.
Thank you. Yep, Councillor Newmark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't expecting to speak on this, and I'm certainly not going to be able to do justice to the remarks Councillor Chalice had planned on cherry blossom jokes and the whole like. But look, you know what they say about Kemi's election, which was this was an election that the Tories had to organise. All of the candidates were Tories, and yet they still managed to get the wrong result. I'm really pleased that we have a Tory leader who is not afraid of Doctor Who. I think that's absolutely a noble and welcome attribute. I also think that, I don't believe all this stuff about her sort of political anchor being anti-wokeism, because she actually successfully promoted and introduced secondary legislation that retained the pre-Brexit EU provisions on indirect discrimination. And when she was challenged by members on the right of her own party about doing this, she actually told them that she didn't realise that's what she'd done. I think she did. I think there's more to it than that. Yeah, look, I do support all that Keir has said about her so far, and I obviously support all that he will say about her in the future. But what I don't support is her use of offensive terms to describe LGBTQ plus people, her failure to vote for marriage equality in Northern Ireland, her claims that autistic people have special privileges, particularly in light of the discussion we've had about SEN this evening. I don't support her failure to meet a single mainstream LGBTQ plus organisation while she was Minister of Equalities, and frankly I find her jokes about rape and sexual violence appalling. But for me, the reason that I wholeheartedly back this motion is its support of the heroic work of Martine and her husband Victor in promoting promoting diversity in this borough, in launching an event to mark Black History Month in Boreham Wood for the first time 6 or 7 years ago, that's gone from strength to strength, and for filling a room at 10 a.m. with Boreham Wood residents on a Sunday morning to hear Councillor Clapper and myself talk about unconscious bias. I mean, who else could achieve that? Absolutely agree. OBE, if not a damehood.
Right, thank you, Councillor Newmark. Anyone else wish to speak? Yeah, Councillor Richards.
I'll keep it very brief. I echo the comments on Martina and the Diversity Festival. I went with my family last year, and we couldn't tear ourselves away. It was a really fabulous experience. I'm only sorry I wasn't able to attend this year, but I'll redouble my efforts next year. And I agree, diversity across Hertsmere is exceptional, and we have to work on ensuring that we don't dilute any of that work that members from across the chamber have been doing for many years. I'd also agree with Ed Davey. I think he was probably along the lines of that Kemi Badenoch is the best choice of MP for the Lib Dems. Thank you. Of Conservative. I fluffed it.
It's okay, don't worry.
You know what I mean?
It's late, Councillor Richards, so I'm sure people will let you off on that one. Okay. Yeah, Councillor Bright, yeah, your last speaker, please.
I think you're probably right the first time. I think we probably would have got the joke if you hadn't have corrected it. So I think quite understood it. Look, it is a very good thing indeed when Councillor Newmark laces his comments with the sorts of insults that he does, which shows already the effect that the new leader of the Conservative Party is having, because he couldn't just say, yeah, that's really good. He had to do all the other stuff well prepared. Oh, I wasn't expected to speak, but I just happened to have one here prepared earlier in the Mary Berry School of cooking up something to say for the sake of it. Can I just say that in relation to the Diversity Festival, I'd like to thank Councillor Clapper. I was away at half-term, and it is very little I can think of that I'd rather do less at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning than sit next to Jeremy Newmark. It's bad enough sitting opposite him at 10:25 at night on a Wednesday. But Martine Ennie is a force to be reckoned with. She does this with the help of her team, but she leads from the forefront. And I think Councillor Alexander was absolutely right. The fact that this is supported by all the parties, financially and otherwise, putting our budgets and our grant monies where our mouths are, because sadly it still takes that kind of push to make these things happen. Hopefully one day we'll live in a place when we don't need diversity festivals and we don't need Black History Month, we don't need special days for this, that and the other, but for now we do. It's very important that we do moving forward, and I certainly support these moves, and I certainly support these occasions, these days, these months that we have, Pride and so on. And I very much hope that Martine is recognised in the way that she needs to be, but particularly I think just a word of thanks from this authority and this council would suffice from her tonight. So let's pass on our best wishes to her in a way, perhaps via a letter via yourself, Mr Mayor, that we all agreed that she was deserving of our thanks. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bright. You've already spoken, didn't you? So, Councillor Clapper, please sum up.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Just to quickly go back, firstly, a point of clarification for one of my members behind. Badge saying 3-0 is about 3 female Prime Ministers. I was not forgetting Liz Truss. That's Margaret Thatcher, Theresa May, Liz Truss. Kemi Badenoch is our first leader of the opposition. Perhaps one day when they reprint this badge in a few years, it will say 4-0. So we can all look forward to that. Councillor Alexander, thank you very much for your comments. Just to say also on this side, we were also very happy to financially support the Diversity Festival. We all pay our tribute and thanks to not only Martine, but Victor, because he is the person that has to go through all of the things that she comes up and creates, and she is indeed a formidable force. Councillor Newmark, thank you very much. You didn't really say that many complimentary things about Kemi Badenoch, but I might struggle to find so many complimentary things to say about Keir Starmer, so I guess we might be even in that respect. Councillor Richards, thank you very much for your comments. And just to say, we're pleased that Lib Dems are happy about Kemi. it's an open invitation to you all. You're very welcome to walk across the floor and join us anytime you want. The Conservatives will be delighted to have you over here, so anytime you're welcome. And thank you very much, Councillor Bright. I understand you couldn't be there, but I was delighted to attend. I thought it was a really engaging, interesting session, a lot of questions, and it certainly educated me with regards to unconscious bias. So I'm really pleased to see that we've got, hopefully, unanimous agreement across the chamber, and I'm really pleased that we actually managed to get to opposition business this evening. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Clapper. So we'll move to the electronic voting system. And that passes unanimously. And I'm not going to start that agenda item now. So that motion, opposition business, is carried. Thank you. Members, I'd quite happily say it's come to 10:30, although it's like a few seconds out. So in that case, we'll round up with saying agenda item 24, date of the next meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for the 22nd of January 2025. This means that I have the chance now to wish everyone a happy Christmas who's celebrating that, and who's celebrating Hanukkah. Have a good Hanukkah as well, and anyone else celebrating any other events, season's greetings. So thank you. Close the meeting at 10:30. Thank you.